on now. Get your shoes and socks on, kids. It's right around the corner. It is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Clank your chains and count your change. Yo, Alberil, what's the score of the game? What's happening in Italy? What's up? Maurizio, what's up? What's up? Ray Hogan, rest in power, Johnny Fever. Okay. There you go. Tony Mann. What's up, Tony? Good to see you the other night at the Jesse Malin show. The Bruce Springsteen of the Lower East Side, Jesse Malin. Joe Frank, what do you say? Yep. Al Burrell, we're counting on you for the updates on the game. This might be considered the first online appearance by hardcore filmmakers. It's like George Lucas and Spielberg. Well, thank you. That's awfully kind of you, Al Burrell. We really appreciate that. What else we got? Hey, Larry the Hunter. You guys were great the other night. Kings never die. Come on now. You didn't suck. In a world of suck, you didn't. So there you go. Hey, Marla. Hope you're well. I hope everybody's well. Yo, I got a good feeling about today's show. I'm excited. I got an old friend coming on. And usually when I have a feeling like this, I got a feeling deep inside. Oh, yeah. Drew, did you go upstate? As a matter of fact, I did go upstate. And what you're seeing here right now is a clone. I'm actually a clone of Drew Stone because the real Drew Stone is up at Hooligan Holiday running around with Sid the Kid. I'm not real. I'm fake. I'm the fake Drew Stone who decided to stay here in the city. Nah, I didn't go anywhere, bro. I got a show to do. Where the fuck am I going? You know? I don't know if it's going to be a 4-hour show today, but it's going to be long. That said,
what's
up?
Right
over there?
Are you Drew Clone?
I'm Drew Clone. I'm Drew Clone number 5. May I help you?
You're going to pull the face up and have all the robot, you know?
I'm the Drew Clone with the really big penis.
Remember the $6 Million Man? They had the fembots.
No, I don't.
They had the women were all like androids.
I'm the Drew Clone. Each Drew Clone has a different like specialty. Yep. So there you go. Hey, shouting out Lori Dawn.
What's up, Lori Dawn?
What's happening up there? Boom. You get any snow up out there? You know? Hear me call in. Johnny Rock. Yep. That was Austin Powers, wasn't it? Wasn't that Austin Powers?
No, Austin Powers paid tribute to the robot women.
Oh.
Come on now. $6 Million Man is way back.
Yes, there is a Grateful Dead Drew Clone. He's living in Humboldt County right now. Yep. Hey, Sally, how are you? Yep.
Hey, who was reaching out from Italy just now?
That was Maurizio.
Because I'll be in Italy.
Ciao, Steven. We are waiting in Italy.
I will be there for February 18th to the 26th.
Is that right?
Yep.
What are you doing?
Me and my brother going to Rome, the Vatican, the whole thing. So I got to talk to the Pope about a few things.
Guineas. What are you doing? What are you going back to the homeland?
Yes.
Jesus. All right, let's do photo of the day.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Hold on, let me clear all this crap out. Hold on. I want to give it the respect it deserves. All right. What's up, Drew and Steven from sunny Las Vegas? Jeff,
what's
Bronk
up?
In Vegas. Whew. I haven't been to Vegas in a minute. Here we go. Wrong. Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. Wrong answers only, please. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, photo of the day. Boom. Wrong answers only, please. Here you go. Is it? Is it? Give it up for Lee Majors. He nailed Farrah Fawcett. Who did I just read? I read about someone today that was dating Farrah Fawcett. Did Ron do gay from the Rangers date Farrah Fawcett?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Anybody out there remember that? Did Ronnie Doog on the Rangers shtup Farrah Fawcett?
He was a lady killer back then.
Yeah, Duguay got it good, man. You know, is it Bono? Is it the Greaseballs? Yeah, pretty much. Is it? Okay, we got one yes he did, and Alberil says no. I think Ron Duguay shtupped Farrah Fawcett. It was Carol Alt. No, but I think before Carol Alt, I think he took a ride around the merry-go-round.
No, Carol Alt was with the other Ranger.
Oh, he was with Greshner. Carol Alt
Ron
was with Greshner.
You're right.
Yo, Carol Alt was with me. What? Is it shtup? LOL. Is it close? LOL. Yeah, Gresh.
That's a new hardcore band right there. Shtup.
Shtup. We're shtup.
Hey, Randy Gregg.
Bend over. We're shtup. Right?
What's up, Randy Gregg?
Is it Barry Beck? Good call.
I hated that guy.
Bubba. We loved Bubba. He was like a Ranger, bro. Is it Raleigh Fingers? Did. Okay. Now we're off. Duguay was Kim Alexis. Yo, big ups to Ron Duguay, who was shtupping Kim Alexis. Come on now.
That's why it took him so long to win a Stanley Cup.
Whew. I was busy shtupping what's her face with the thing on the side. What was her name? With the thing on her face. With the thing. Hey,
Cindy
who's the
Crawford?
one with the thing on her face? Oh boy, this just took a strange turn. This show. Come on. All right, let's try to get it back on track. Is it Steve Weeks? Is it Gary Newman?
Steve Weeks.
Is it Robert Smith? Looks a little bit like Lou Reed. Okay, let's go with another photo from that very same night. Okay. Is it? Okay, here's another one from that very same night. Same band, different performer. There you go. Is it Eva Mendes? Is it Betty White? Is it Devo? Is it Ron Scott? Do you mean Bon Scott? Okay, you kind of win with that one, Rat Bones. Is it Kenny Cintron? That's pretty funny. Is it Shannon Hoon? All right. Abe Vigoda, Kid Rock, Steven Tyler, David Lee Roth. Good one. Kind of funny. All right. We're getting back on track here. Life of Joy. I'm not familiar with Life of Joy. One last one, and let's get some right answers only, please. Here is, you know what? Let's go backwards here. You got to go backwards to move forwards. Here's this guy. Meanwhile, here's a clue. We've had every single member of this band on the show. This is the only band that we've had every single member on the show.
That's right. We're close to Biohazard,
is it
though.
Phil Espo? Is it Joey Buttafuoco? Good one. Funny, not funny, funny. That's funny. Is it Joey Buttafuoco? Okay. All right. Right answers only, please. Here we go. No more humor. Everyone thinks they're funny. Okay, right answers only, please. Boom. Is it LOA? Is it LOA? Is it the mighty LOA? Is it LOA? Is it LOA? Is it Life of Agony? Is it LOA? Is it Life of Agony? What is it?
It is LOA and Life of Agony. Yes. This is not only, you know what, this is a fun one because we were both there. And this was my first trip to the Debonair Music Hall in Teaneck, New Jersey. And it was a fantastic bill. Kings Never Die, Dog Eat Dog, Life of Agony. And all three bands absolutely brought it. Great show. And I really enjoyed the room. It was the first time I've ever been there. And I kind of liked the way the room was set up. Everybody sounded great. And just these guys have been killing it all week long. This has been their kind of mini tour that LOA's been on. They played like since Wednesday. I know they played last night. They played the night before. So they've been just killing it. And they were so happy to be there. You could just tell, like the second they came out, Joey was like, you could just tell how happy they were to actually be playing again.
I was there.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was really good.
Yes,
It was.
Yes, Debonair Music Hall is the old Mexicali Blues in Teaneck, New Jersey. That is correct.
Somebody told me it was a Mexican place.
No, it was used to be called Mexicali Blues. It was a live venue called Mexicali Blues. I don't know if that was the name of the music venue. I don't know if that constitutes it being a Mexican place.
Well, no, someone told me it was a Mexican restaurant, is what they told me. So
really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe just it was a venue with Mexican food. Who knows? But it was actually really cool and still awesome seeing. Yeah,
that was weird. They're kind of scared about having bands that have people moshing. A couple people were moving like to Dog Eat Dog, and like the bouncers like zoned in on them. Like,
I noticed it was very respectful up front, like the front row. And the security, there was no barrier, but the front row gave about 3 feet for the security to move around. Yeah, and everybody was cool. But great seeing Danny Schuler with Kings Never Die again. Just a really cool night. And they'll do. In fact, they'll be in the Warsaw this Friday.
That's right. I got to say that it was a good night. It's rare that I get to go out and actually look at music. And because I'm either usually on the bill having a play, in which case I don't really give a fuck like what your band is doing, because I got to get on stage and do my thing. So right. I'm not standing around. I'm stressing out about, I'm either stressing out about getting on stage or unwinding after. So it's hard for me to check out your band. Or when we're doing one of the Bowery Electric shows, the A7 shows, I'm like constantly, as soon as I introduce a band, I got to go outside before the next fight starts. So, or the next fucking bullshit, So it's rare that I actually get to go. So I watched all 3 bands. I watched Kings Never Die with featuring Danny Schuler on drums and Larry the Hunter on guitar. Dog Eat Dog, that's their hometown, and Life of Agony. And that's the first time that I've watched Life of Agony play in 25, 30 years probably.
Wow.
Like, that's the first time I actually, me and the rock chick, like, sat there, like, stood there and, like, she never heard of Life of Agony. She was really impressed.
It was a great night. I thought it was a particularly great night.
And I gotta say that they were really good, and they are a hell of a band. They got a great dynamic going on. They have Mina singing and Veronica playing drums. Veronica is the best female drummer I've ever seen. She crushes. Like she's a hard hitter. She's better than 70% of the dude drummers out there.
Oh yeah, no, she's got a style, and she's so good. I mean,
yeah,
she gives them like a swing almost, and that's what I love about it. I got 2 things actually before.
Hey, I got 2 things.
One is I wanted to congratulate our friends in the Car Bomb Parade. Just put their new 7-inch New World Hardcore EP out, which is really cool, by the way, and features photos from Michelle Minotta in here. Actually, a nice little photo bomb by the Serial Poets on that pole out there. But a beautiful thing, and in fact, it's yellow vinyl. Really cool. And the other thing is that I want to know more about this beer, this Crazy Eddie beer that Lenny posted about. It's like a like a coquito ale or something. It sounds really good.
Oh, you beer guys.
I know. I know.
There's
It
a new
looks
beer.
great.
There's a new beer. What is it? I gotta drink it. Like beer nerds.
Exactly.
And beer
Exactly.
nerds.
But
And like pot
Lenny,
nerds.
tell us about that beer when you get a chance. I'm dying to taste it.
And pot
So
nerds. Like, is the strain like, is it the like Scooby-Doo strain? Like, ugh, get the fuck out of here with this shit.
well, you haven't had a beer in what, decades, right?
Nah, I haven't had a drink or a drug in a very long time.
Why don't you just have a beer?
What the hell? Are you queer? Listen, I had enough beer and drugs for everybody. I'm good.
Now you're sharing. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm leaving some for the rest of you people now,
That's
You
funny.
gotta be a nice guy. All right, man.
I'm looking forward to this one. This is awesome.
Pop back in later. We'll see you in a bit.
I definitely will.
Okay. All right, what's happening? This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Lots of bad language on today's show. Not sure if it's not for kids, this show today. We are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, the Texas Silver Rush, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Generation Records, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, and come on now, located in Corpus Christi, Texas, Chacho's Tacos opened their doors in 2001, home of the almighty Chacho's Taco. They cook up an incredible home-style Tex-Mex food, and this month they are celebrating their 20th anniversary. They've been supporting underground music since the beginning, and in their own words, we ain't stopping anytime soon. Touring bands that play Corpus Christi, swing by and get a home-cooked meal at Chacho's Tacos. We got you. The underground scene will never die. Please follow us on Facebook or on Instagram. Come on now. Actually, I'll save that one. How about the Texas Silver Rush? It's a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in working with all musicians in all music genres to design and create unique one-off pieces as well as style them for stage, album covers, promo photos, and social media exposure. Their client list includes Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rowley, Ringo Starr, and of course, Agnostic Front. During this current pandemic, all information and online sales are being taken on their Facebook and Instagram page, and of course, www.thetexassilverrush.com. Just real quick here, want to talk about the next 4 shows. There you go. Don't be scared. Coming up this Wednesday, Mark Weiss, February 2nd, this Wednesday. He's got a book out called The Decade That Rocked. You know him. His photos are incredible. The real deal. We will be talking to him. And then, as fate would have it, strangely enough, Ed Culver's coming up, another photographer, a week from... No, there's no show next Sunday because we have a Bowery Electric show. So a week from Wednesday's Ed Culver. Of course, iconic Black Flag Damaged album cover, TSOL, Bad Religion, Circle Jerks, and much, much more. Then Sunday, February 13th, come on now, Doro Pesh is going to be on the show. That should be great. She's awesome. And then, come on now, set it off. Sunday, February 20th, Mike Gurnari from Madball and Strength in Numbers will be on the show. So lots coming up, lots going down. I want to mention real quick that this Sunday, a week from today, we will be at the Bowery Electric. We have returned with Sub-Zero, Murderers Row, Dark Side NYC, Cropsey, and Schizopolis. It is free. It is all ages. Come down and support it. Don't make me come looking for you. This is an important thing. And all you bum-ass bands, let me tell you something. All you bum-ass bands, if you want to play one of these shows, what I suggest to you is come down and support another band. It wouldn't kill you. I love when bands, hey, Drew, any chance you could get us on that bill? Oh, have you ever been down to one of the 20 shows that we've done? Oh, no, none of them in the band. Yeah, really? Listen, man, if you're not going to come down and support other bands, don't ask me to play a show. Right? Can't stand that shit. That said, available. Get ready for this. available at Sunday's show. They will be there selling it. Yes, you asked for it by popular demand. It is the limited edition Victim in Pain 500-piece puzzle. Agnostic Front Victim in Pain 500-piece puzzle will be on sale at the show on this Sunday. Limited. All proceeds go to benefit Roger Moret. So come on down and buy the puzzle. You can get your little booger eater going on it. And that's what's happening. So, yeah. Yep, that's right. It is the Victim in Pain puzzle. Generation Records is putting it together. Yeah, there you go. I wish you were here too. That's right, Lori Dawn. You know. You got, yeah, Dark Side is playing. Yep. The next 4 are going to be killer. That's right. There you go. Yep. How's Roger doing? Roger's doing better. Buy the puzzle and support him. Yeah, cool puzzle, right? All right. That said, I'll remind you again later. You friggin' bums. Come down and support the show. Let's bring our guest on. Here we go. Here we go. Let me just make sure everybody's okay. What's happening in Argentina? Come on now. Mirage Films in Argentina. Love Argentina. Lee Bundy, how's it going, Drew? It's going well. I'm doing a show. How's it going with you? There you go. That said, come on. Enough kookiness. Let's bring our guest on. Let's talk about music, all right? Today's guest is an American author, journalist, promoter, DJ, record collector, and filmmaker who is best known for his book, American Hardcore, his book and movie, American Hardcore. He has written 5 books, including New York Rock and Lost Rockers, and is the founder of Seconds Magazine. Please welcome, coming at us from Greenwich Village on my island of Manhattan, our old friend, Mr. Steve Blush. Hey, buddy.
So good to see you, Drew. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Awesome. Hey, so you were talking about the guy on the Rangers, and I hate to spring it on everybody, but he was in the news because he's going out with Sarah Palin.
Right. He he had dinner the other night with Sarah Palin.
When she had COVID outside. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
I mean, listen, you got to really be a desperado, if you're like, you know what? So what? She has COVID. I'm going to go out with her. Maybe I'll get laid.
Yeah. It's all good. I'm going to definitely come out and support that puzzle.
I don't know if Duguay is like, I don't know if Duguay is associated with the Rangers anymore these days. If anybody out there knows, I think they might have cut him out.
Hockey's like a real culture, man. It's like you're either 100% in or you're not.
Yeah.
Like I can't.
Hey, shouting out our old friend Jamie Sharappa from SSD Control. What's up?
Oh, love him.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody the other day about the 5-piece bands of hardcore.
Yeah.
So, of course, we were talking about SSD.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about Government Issue with Brian Baker.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Des Cadena with Black Flag.
Well, Minor Threat with Steve Hansgen, right?
Yeah, right. And, I don't know if you saw the 5-piece of Scream, but that was a particularly good band.
Wow.
Anyway, so we digress, but Jamie Sharappas made me think of that. So.
As far as that goes, like to me, the 5-piece was SSD.
Yeah.
What came before that, to me, was SSD Control.
Yeah.
It was like 2 different sort of things.
That's totally the difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? That SSD stuff stands strong, despite what everybody said. That stuff was awesome.
I revisited it. I revisited it fairly recently.
It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the latest? What's going on since the zombie apocalypse? How's the last 2 years been, man?
So I don't know if you were one of my conversations. I know your friend Mark was, and a few of our other people. And I was like, my last conversations with a lot of them was, hey, take this shit seriously, man. Get out of here or something. So I was out of town for about half a year. I have a wife and daughter. I really had to think about that. And it really was escape from New York when I left, you know, and it was really heavy, and came back and embraced the city again. Love it. You know, doing all that. I've had a book that came out called Bustin' Balls, working on a new book that's about, well, that's a whole story in itself. And then I have a new book, and then I'm writing another book, which comes out at the end of this year. Yeah, Bustin' Balls. Which is a oh, I could tie this together. Okay, so I was watching some footage of Billie Jean King on MSG Network, and they showed her with this New York Apples World Team Tennis, and it was all based on gender equality, and it was all based on pop culture, like Philadelphia Freedom. The song by Elton John was written about her, because she was on a team called the Philadelphia Freedoms. So, and it was also political. And, you know, when I wrote American Hardcore, it's like, you know, everybody has their own vision of what punk rock is and all that. But I saw a very political movement. And I saw the music as like the subtext for radicalism in the Reagan era. And that's what the book was about. That's what the film's about. And I kind of found a kindred spirit with this thing that Billie Jean King was doing, where I watched her being interviewed, and she talked about gender equality and men and women on the same court, and never wearing white, and cursing, and allowing loud crowds, and drinking, and it was like almost like American Hardcore, and it was almost like Dogtown. It was like the dirtying up of a culture. And I just really fell for it. And I wrote this thing, and it's really kind of taken off. Luckily, I've been embraced by some of the bigger people in this tennis world. So it's almost like a Ball 4, if you know Jim Bouton, Ball 4, where he kind of exposed dirty secrets. So I don't do that per se, but it's just kind of a funny, weird story.
Well, I remember that league, that tennis league. It was sort of like this. I don't want to compare it to like roller derby, but it was sort of this like this.
It was really wacky. It was really wacky.
This odd circuit that they tried to launch, and it's, what did it last? 2 or 3 years?
Actually lasted 5 years, but it was a complete train wreck. It was like anybody who invested in it lost their shirt, but it launched a lot of really famous people.
Wasn't Bob Kraft? Didn't Bob Kraft own?
Correct. Bob Kraft and
the Boston Lobsters.
Boston Lobsters. That's right. The original Boston Lobsters. Yeah. And Jerry Buss had the LA Strings.
Wow.
And they both said something to the same effect of that. That was the most expensive school lesson I ever learned to know how to own a sports team.
Sure.
And it was a complete train wreck and weird. And I've gotten to know a lot of those characters, and none of them know about this other side of me. Yep. They don't even know what punk rock is, really.
That's interesting.
Dogtown, they don't even know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
really.
That's happened to me. That's happened to me when doing the street bike films. There was when I had years, I did the street bike films. There was no connection to hardcore, and that happens. Did you grow up in a musical household? How did music come into your life?
You know, it's really funny. I had no musical household. My father was a lot older. My father was born in 1921.
Oh, wow.
So he had operettas on 78s by Gilbert and Sullivan, which I don't know if you know operettas, but Gilbert and Sullivan were these really bawdy kind of stories. Opera was fancy, and operetta was like the punk rock. It was like the ugly stuff for the masses. So it was
I did not know that.
Yeah, so it was like dirty and whatever. So that's, that was the extent of it. My mom, had like Nat King Cole records and Harry Belafonte and a few of those things. So I listened to those, but music just spoke to me from a really early age. And I was always connected to the radio, and I always had I was always interested in history. So I was always, I was really tapped into the whole thing. And
what was your first?
My first records were, I walked into Two Guys in East Brunswick, New Jersey, and I saw a couple Johnny Cash records, and he was wearing black. And and one of them was called The Man in Black. and I still wear black, right? So it's that just immediately spoke to me. So I had Ring of Fire and Man in Black, something else, a greatest hits album of some sort, and I listened to those things like crazy, right? And I just memorized it, and I got to know it, and
So Johnny Cash was your portal.
yeah, it really was. And it was really funny because I was turning my daughter onto. I'm very careful about. I'm not the kind of dad who's like, "Oh, come listen to this thrash or goth," or I'm not pulling that with her. But
Right.
I do listen to like Social Distortion from the '90s, which you could play. He does Ring of Fire.
Yeah, sure.
He's very much like that. He kind of and he actually went to jail. Johnny Cash kind of went to jail. But,
Johnny Cash went to jail to perform. He went to San Quentin to do a record, right?
Yeah, no, he had like the thing about him in retrospect, as I've learned, is every one of his busts were over meth. That's what he was busted for. But basically, everyone was a drug bust.
And back then, meth was in a pill form, and those performers, especially the country western guys, were like living on a steady diet of prescribed amphetamines. Correct?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
So when anyway, so when Social Distortion kind of went that direct, I had interviewed. I started interviewing pretty early, but so one of my earlier interviews was Mike Ness, Social Distortion, L.A. Prison Bound. Oh, there you go. Look at that one. That one throwing way back.
There you go. Figured I'd start. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, wow, that even distracted me. What we were talking about?
Mike Ness.
Oh yeah. So
I'm looking for another.
One of my first interviews was Mike Ness, L.A. Prison Bound, which was his album after Mommy's Little Monster.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, there was no press beating down his door to do that stuff. But he had just come out of jail, and it was like that was the point where I kind of made that connection of
there you go
of the two worlds.
You grew up in New Jersey.
Yeah, I have a funny story. I've realized that my story is pretty funny. It took me half a century to figure this out, but my dad's from the Lower East Side. He was born on Rivington Street, worked at 195 Christie Street. My grandfather worked there. I spent every weekend of my life there. We started.
And your dad owned a printing shop, correct?
Correct. Yeah, right across from that park over there. And so that was kind of like where I ran as a kid. There was this other part. So we're talking about how old I am. So or what age of my life, but somewhere in grammar school, we were living in Howard Beach, Queens, which is basically where the Gotti family ruled.
Sure.
And all those guys were my friends at the time, when they were like 8 or 9 or 7 or 8 or whatever it was. And my mom was not having it. My mom was like from Teaneck, New Jersey. She was a school teacher. She was like, we're not having this. And we moved to Central Jersey. So I had this kind of odd life where I had this incredibly hyper-conformist reality in the suburbs, but every Saturday or Sunday it was like, take the kid to New York with you, so, I spent like a lot of time like in the print shop and walking around. So the first time I ever got drunk was a bar on Avenue A. First time I ever got laid was a hooker in Delancey and Forsyth. I discovered the Lower East Side. I discovered
and also back then the Lower East Side was way before gentrification.
Oh my God, yeah, this was Puerto Rican. I had a friend who, of course, went to jail and died like later, but he lived in the Columbia buildings, right off the FDR over there, and I used to spend weekends there during the 70s. I mean, which is insane if you think about it.
Yeah.
And so I got a pretty good schooling. I saw somebody get shot when I was about 11. So it was, I ran a favor to the Ravenite Social Club, which was 2 blocks away from my dad.
Sure.
And I got $100 for buying these guys cigarettes in a 6-pack. And my father said, like, you're never going over there again. So I ended up going north, and that's how I discovered St. Mark's Place. Right. Yeah. So I'm a little bit older than that right there, where I'm kind of doing this kind of stuff. So I went to CBGB's at 14, I think. I'm trying to figure this out.
Who'd you see?
Yeah, I think I was 14, and I went to CBGB's to drink. And I went there at like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, right, when work was let out for my dad, because he was just doing whatever. And I was drinking there, and that's where I saw, like, you know, Blonde. I guess it was like an Easter festival, or it was some big show, and it was like Blondie and Talking Heads, and I'm sure this is on record. You know, this show.
Was this before you went to England?
Yeah, So anyway, so I'm seeing all these characters, right? And in fact, if I confirmed this with Bob Gruen, but at 195 Christie, my dad was on the 3rd floor, and I want to say it was on like the 6th floor. There was a band that was rehearsing at night, like when we, you know, toward the end of the day or on the weekend. And I met them once. I was too scared to really go up there. They kind of freaked me out. And I remember walking outside one time with my dad, and the guy from the band glaring at me. And I never forgot that glare. And I asked Bob Gruen, and
Can I guess?
Right. It was Talking Heads. It was Talking Heads.
Oh, it's Talking Heads?
Yeah, it was Bob Gruen. I mean, it was David Byrne. Right? So I just kind of had this as like a conscience that was kind of going on. And then just by chance, I'm in high school, and I adjust, but I don't. Like, I did well in sports, so I kind of had that world, but I didn't really have any friends in that world. So, you know, I was kind of like trying to figure it all out. I got really into Bad Company, got really into I saw Led Zeppelin. I saw Led Zeppelin Madison Square Garden Presence Tour.
77?
77, right. So I'm like 15 or 16 or something, right?
Man,
so,
I wish I
yeah,
saw
and that like really changed me. I mean, not just the people throwing M80s into the crowd and smoking dusted joints and stuff, but like just like the sheer power of it, and also having this creepy idea in the back of my head that I just saw something important and it wasn't quite that fulfilling. And what I mean by that was, yeah, when Led Zeppelin did all the great songs, it was all that. But I remember 25 minutes of the Battle of Evermore, I remember a half hour of Moby Dick.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
that whole bit with the bow.
Dun, with dun. The bow. Yeah, that went on forever.
Dun, dun.
Is that called Achilles' Last Stand? Yeah, or something.
Oh,
yeah,
man, yeah.
It went on forever, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so it didn't have the immediacy. That's what I'm trying to say. It was like, It wasn't really kind of clicking to me. I definitely was a suburban, and I wanted rock. Oh, and here's a great story. So there's 2 kids that go to my high school who are older than me. They were separate from each other, but one of them was Matt Pinfield, the DJ, wow. And the other one was Mitch Dean from the second TSOL, who I kind of reconnected with after that. So, and Bon Jovi was from the high school next to us, and the town next to us was Old Bridge, which is where the whole kind of
Metal Militia came out of there.
Yeah, right. So that whole kind of thing, like Johnny Z had a store in
Rock and Roll Heaven.
Right. And I used to bring before Rock and Roll Heaven was a store, it was a flea market on Route 18, correct? Mm-hmm. And I was like, by that time, that's like 81, 82. And I'm going to like, I've seen the Dead Kennedys at MDC, and, I'm ready for revolution. And, I go to this store, and it's like, at the time, it's like $18 picture discs of Iron Maiden. That's where I took my sister there because she couldn't drive. And I'm like, the fuck is this shit? It's like, I was like, so not about it. But because of that, I saw, I saw Metallica at a club called JJ's in Sayreville.
Wow.
Which was totally insane. But the night before, I can't believe these even happened at the same time. But the night before, I was at when Black Flag started doing these tours like in the early 80s, and they made it like a political statement not to play in the cities. They were playing the
Didn't you? But before this was going down, didn't you go to England on a
Oh yeah,
pilgrimage?
okay, yeah. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So
because didn't England? I know you went to England.
John, me. So check this out. So, and anybody who's English will know what I'm talking about. So my mom means well, and I'm a junior. I'm going into my I just finished my junior year of high school. So I just finished my sophomore year of high school. So that's
Hey, just real quick.
Yeah.
Chiefs 14-3. Get ready for a blowout, kids.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I thought this could be a blowout. It's quite possibly.
It's a blowout.
Yeah, we had talked about that before.
Yeah. Anyway.
So my mom saw like I was kind of struggling with just being in the suburbs, and I was getting in trouble for bullshit.
Oh, you too?
So and just for shit you wouldn't even get in trouble for if you went to school in the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of whatever. So my mom got me was a teacher, right? So she found out about a high school exchange program to England, and it was described as a private school in London. But public and private are kind of like different than we talk about it. So a private school is like a public school. And I wasn't in London. I was in Ilford, Essex, which is like being in Canarsie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm there like in 1979. And like, it's like, they're still angry at America for entering World War II till at the end and taking all the credit, like weird shit like that. You go to a pub, people would get into it with you. But I did learn how to fight there. I learned how to fight. I fought like in school. I fought the first 4 days I was there. I met like an American who was like 6'4", and that was cool. But that's kind of like how it was. So it was like a totally different culture. It's like they pack a can of Heineken in your lunchbox to school.
Yeah,
it was like a totally different world, right? So. And I'm going to soccer matches, and it is like so dangerous with the hooligans. Queens Park Rangers, like it's just insane. It's just like insane. The whole culture is like there's riots are brewing in Brixton. Like the whole thing was insane. I'm like on the subway, just going places, and I went to go see 250,000 people, Bob Dylan and Eric Clapton. And the opening bands were Jode Arbitrating and Graham Parker.
Oh wow!
And
that's interesting.
Then fucking, it's like Eric Clapton, "You Are Wonderful Tonight," and it's like Bob Dylan went Christian. I mean, it was brutal. It was really like kind of like the worst thing I couldn't even process how bad it was. And I was reading all the British magazines. I was picking up the NME and reading about these bands and kind of connecting it back to New York.
Mm-hmm.
I also knew, like, Patti Smith would be at the New York Times, like, or there'd be a story on the Velvet Underground talking about Venus and Furs and S&M, and be like, wow, like there's a whole other world out there. And if you saw the Clash movie, Rude Boy, there's a scene where they're playing the Rock Against Racism.
Sure, the outdoor thing where they have Jimmy
Percy gets on for White
69.
Riot. Yeah. Right. So the next show I go to is that. And it's just like, life changing, right? Really.
Sure.
And
yeah, that looked pretty epic on film.
Yeah, it really was that, and I saw a couple other shows. I saw Iggy Pop in a club.
Mm-hmm. But you got to see the Clash with Topper Headon.
Yeah, I guess I did. Yeah. And then when I came home, I was wrecked. I came home with like my Tom Robinson and X-Ray Specs and Sham 69, and my friends are, working on their cars listening to Deep Purple Machine Head.
And Bad Company.
Yeah, Bad Company. I can't.
Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it was like all that. So, but I was able to connect it back to New York because I had been seeing this stuff, and all of a sudden it just that just kind of built. So the next year was all that. I had a girlfriend and she had older brothers and sisters who were so cool. They were so cool that they had tickets for Joy Division before Ian Curtis killed himself. Like they actually were on to that show. They knew everything. I'm back in contact with them through social media. It's incredible.
They were looking forward.
Right. So I'm 18 years old and going to see Kraftwerk and DAF and Gang of Four before the record's out in America. And
now, were you in college? You went to George Washington University.
Right. So then I go off to college in 19. So that particularly leads. I graduate high school in end of 80, and I go to Washington D.C. kind of expecting the same thing as New York, and
same thing as me. Graduated in 80, went up to Boston at Emerson College in 1981.
Yeah, right. So I'm up there, and I found the 930 Club, which was it was the original 930 Club in Washington. So I go to George Washington University, 930. I'm like 3 blocks from the White House. I'm a political science major. Ronald Reagan just gets elected. Like we're like marching on the police. We're getting our ass kicked. I'm with like hippies and anarchists, and and I'm like all part of that. And then I found the 930 Club for the music, and I saw Bauhaus with like 5 people. I saw a birthday party with like 9 people. I saw that's a Pylon with like 3 people. So I was just really deep on this stuff. So first year goes by, I'm a DJ at the college radio station, playing all this stuff, and I meet this guy Mike Vraney, who's the manager of TSOL, who I was way into. Black Flag is just starting to come. I just seen Black Flag. So 81 February. St. Valentine's Day, 1981, Black Flag with Des Cadena at the 930 Club is like just life changing. It's like Ian MacKaye and Henry Rollins and like everybody's there and the whole thing, and meeting Chuck Dukowski, and like I'm into politics and he's talking business and he's talking about success in non-economic terms.
Yeah, tell us about that. That's.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like so I go to this show. I go to the Black Flag show. I go downstairs to the backstage. I'm totally afraid to go even into this room, and I open the door, and like literally the DC hardcore scene's like sitting on the floor, like listening to the wisdom of Black Flag, and and then so I kind of like caught the end of that, and then talked to them, and it was just kind of life changing. It was just so life changing to be. That there was nobody watching the door, so you couldn't come in. I had never seen that before. There was always security at the door wherever a band was.
Black Flag was a game changer.
Yeah, so it was a real game changer. So my life has changed, and I'm going up to see
What was the gist of the Chuck Dukowski success in non-economic terms?
Well, the idea that you do stuff because you love it. You do it out of love. You don't do it because you're worried about the economic ramifications. Like you don't think twice about it. And that's how I've lived my life. I mean, it's pretty stupid in some ways, but it's also like I really don't have any regrets.
I read a quote of yours. Black Flag was the definitive band of the early 80s. They were the suburban American response to punk. For a few years, they were the greatest band on the planet. Their ferocious music, tireless work ethic, and independent attitude changed the course of music history. They certainly changed me. I saw Black Flag play over 20 times and own every one of their records, from singles to albums to interview discs, demos, and bootlegs. Every band I have seen since pales in comparison.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add to that is that I don't know if the records stand up in comparison.
Yeah.
I think they had a terrible producer. I mean, I think Damage still does for me. Yeah, well, that was the 2 guitar lineup. Yeah, that's the Black Flag record. Then there's everything else.
Black Flag Damage changed my life.
Yeah, and the album is so good you could almost excuse everything else. The album is kind of genius, the entire thing. Even the way it's constructed, the way like the fast songs are on the side one and the longer songs are on side two.
Sure.
Like just the concepts, like you could almost follow their career through the course of that album.
Now you got into promotion,
right? So I'm telling you this story. So I go back 81. So this is 82. Black Flag's playing literally. I go back to New Jersey to go to my parents' house, and Black Flag have like, I think it was like 9 shows with this drummer named Emil.
Yeah, from Twisted Roots.
Right, and he only plays on the B side of the Louie Louie single or something weird.
Like I Gotta Run, I think.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. He may be on a compilation too, but
he was great. I saw him play with them. He was great.
Yeah, that was an incredible period of the band.
Yeah,
and I went to almost every show, and one of them was with TSOL. I want to say it was like at Hitsville and Passaic or like one of those kind of places.
That makes sense.
And I started talking to this guy named Mike Verini, and he's the manager of TSOL, which was weird because I never met like a hardcore manager. But then he's also said like, oh, you work at the radio station. We don't want to play the 930 Club. Why don't you book a show through your college? We'll walk you through it. We'll teach you how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and so I called my best friend, this guy, Dave Rubin, the late, great Dave Rubin. And we did that show in my school cafeteria under the guidance, because it was involved with the radio station. And
is that Dog Bite Productions?
Yeah, that's this flyer right here.
And is that from the Dead Kenny song, Dog Bite on my leg?
Yep. You're the one person who got that. Yeah, that's so that we called it.
Bro.
I had to come up with. So I had to come up with. I needed a name for the production company, and then I like remembered turning over their records. It was literally like that.
Mellow out or you will pay. I like that on the flyer. Mellow out or you will pay.
Well, that was the vibe, right?
Yeah.
So totally anti-hippie. You were talking before about Mexicali blues, and I was thinking about Drew Stone playing Mr. Charlie off of Europe 72 by the Grateful Dead. So
yeah.
But actually, a great story was that there's an LA Weekly story where they're saying, "Oh, this Grateful Dead show is so terrible. You'd never find Black Flag here." And
right.
The truth is that Black Flag bought tickets so they could go to that show, because there was like kind of an element of that, because they brought the culture to you. They were but they were also making their own records.
I saw Henry Rollins and Greg Ginn at a Grateful Dead show when I was out in California.
Yeah.
And of course, it was years later until, I was living it at the time, but it's community and culture. Yeah. And there is not that much difference between the community and culture of the Grateful Dead and the community and culture of American hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I struggle with that because everything points to me liking the Grateful Dead, but I just don't. But I don't. Yeah. And I keep trying it. And you should.
But it's almost like the music is secondary in a way. It's the tribe.
But I don't want to hear some of that stuff is really fucking awful. It's like, So, but it's interesting. I should like it. I should like it.
Same with hardcore. Now you put on this landmark, incredible show, which, by the way, is the last time Minor Threat ever played, correct?
Yeah. So I did a lot of shows, but there was this one period where I did the Dead Kennedy show where I got thrown off the radio station and almost thrown out of college. Then I went on my own, and I did with my friend Dave. We did Minor Threat opening for Public Image Limited.
Yeah, I have that. Hold on, let's take a look at that. I have that. That is kind of a mind blower. Yeah, so Minor Threat in Public Image, really?
Right. So that was kind of like a hard thing to even get them on board for, but they understood the importance of. I wanted them on the bill, and there's actually better bills, but that one's actually very cool because that is actually my handwriting from 1980.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like a handbill we were giving out at shows and stuff like that. So I made a lot of money on the Dead Kennedy show at college. I lost a lot of money on this show because we gave way too much money to PIL. I think we gave them $7,000 or something like that.
Wow.
You know,
wow, that's a lot.
Incredible amount of money like that. But I didn't die from it. So then the next show I did was the one you were just showing. Was Dave and I got back together and was like, okay. So Dave started working with. There was a scene called the DC Go-Go Funk scene.
Sure.
And it was, I can't really explain to you how big it was. I mean, in New York, a band has a residency and they play somewhere once a week somewhere and they draw 100 people or 200 people. In that city, they drew 2,000. I mean, so Trouble Funk, EU, Chuck Brown, Rare Essence, they were playing 4 or 5 times a week, making $1,500 to $5,000 a night. They got like these crazy managers and like 10-piece bands. Go to those shows. So anyway, so my friend Dave Rubin gets into promoting that stuff. And he literally turns into like this Chitlin Circuit black guy over the course of like 5-10 years. You know, like that's what he lived, you know, booking like, last he was working with Tyler Perry before he passed away. But like, he just works with like, you know, any group. He gets them like, you want to play Accomack, Virginia or Albany, Georgia, or like any of those like big black towns through the South so anyway, so I'm working with him and I'm like, yo, let's do this funk. I have this idea for let's mix the two cultures.
Nice.
And, you know, so funk punk, I think the word had been used by Rick James, but anyway, so we kind of like, you know, created this thing and the big boys, I'm sure they got in touch with me through Minor Threat. I mean, was
there any interaction between Minor Threat and Trouble Funk? Or was it a
well, you know, Trouble Funk. First of all, Trouble Funk was totally the rock stars, right? You know, they're like, you know, they could draw, you know, 5,000 in a night.
Sure.
At that point, you know, but they probably brought about 800, 900 people of their own to this show. And so we drew well over 2,000 people. And what was interesting about that gig also, not only was it, like you said, it was their last show of Minor Threat, but people
Imagine that Minor Threat's last. You promoted Minor Threat's last friggin' show.
You know, I sometimes and let me just tell you
that for those the date on that is
83.
September 23rd, 1983. Last time, and I have a picture. I believe it's from that room. I unless I'm wrong, I believe this is a photo from the very last Minor Threat show.
Yeah, that looks like it. Yeah, that big poles. Yeah.
Yep.
That would be it.
That's
and
it.
We didn't really. I mean, our stages were a joke. We were like putting together.
It looks like all white kids, bro.
Yeah. Well, this could have been. Well, that's them all up front. That's what I would say is I would say pretty much everyone else is cowering at the corners, and it was a huge room. It was a huge room. It was a huge room.
Yeah.
But nobody who would never saw this would go near it for sure. So, but it was so. But what was cool about that show is that's where I really met everyone from Boston and Philly and Richmond and Raleigh. You know, they all came from Jersey, New York. You know, a lot of people came to that show. You know, and I met them, and that was also kind of the start of like this little scene of promoters. It was me in DC. It was Alec Peters in Boston. It was
Alec. By the way, funny you should mention Alec. Alec Peters did the Dead Kennedys in my college cafeteria.
Yeah, so that's how we got to know each other, was because we had this because we had both worked with the Dead Kennedys,
right?
And he worked with Pill.
Yep.
And
yeah, that's right.
He and then we were kind of like the promoters in the town, and there was a guy named Fat Howard in Philly.
Yep.
And you know, there was, you know, a lot of these this cool scene. So it was like, it got to the point where we're like, hey, Youth Brigade from LA want to come through. Can we get them 3 gigs? You know,
There's a shot. There's a shot of the dead Kennedys playing the Fensgate Ballroom at Emerson College.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, but look at this. Look at the speakers they're playing off of.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's really what you're doing. I had no idea what, like, production writer, like, what the fuck are you talking? I had no idea what they were talking about.
Right.
You know, so
hey, I want to shout out real quick in this photo here. You see him like he's wearing these black glasses. You could see him straight across the stage. That's Chris Corkum, who is a big supporter and lover of this show. And his funeral service was Friday. He recently passed away. And so shouting out Chris Corkum on this Wednesday. Rest in peace, Chris. So,
I actually I met him a couple times. He was a nice guy.
He was a nice guy.
I was sad when I heard that, yeah.
From Salem, Mass. Very, very nice guy.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I was like, I got into
this circuit is being developed.
Right, yeah. And it was kind of like off of Black Flag, having conversations with guys from Black Flag and Dead Kennedys and just sharing this information. And it really was heavy. It really was deep. And like, I probably have those notebooks somewhere. And then I put on like, did a lot of shows. I did Suicidal's first tour. I did The Faith's last show, which was like, I think was actually one of the best shows I ever did. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I did a lot of other shows that I'm not really thinking of right now. Oh, I did Black Flag. I did Circle Jerks. Here's a good lineup of a band: Circle Jerks with Earl Liberty on bass.
That was a killer lineup. That was Earl Liberty and Chuck Biscuits. Chuck Biscuits on. Yep. Yo, I saw that. That crushed.
That might have been the best hardcore band I ever saw.
You know what? I could almost agree with you.
Yeah. So it's Keith Morris,
Chuck Biscuits,
Greg Biscuits,
and Earl Liberty on bass.
And Earl Liberty from Saccharine Trust.
Killer. Yeah. I remember what they opened up with. They were great. Yeah.
Yeah, I booked that. I booked GBH's first American show.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I did all that stuff, and then I decided I'm never gonna. Then I started working with a band called No Trend during that time.
Mm-hmm.
We put out a lot of records, and we were like everybody's worst nightmare, you know. And like they were like, you know, like the hardcore band out to destroy hardcore, you know. So they were. In fact, they're the only band I know that like has gotten like 3 or 4 of the hardcore bands that got 3 or 4 articles in the Washington Post. Even their box set that came out got a full page recently. But anyway, so I was like kind of done with hardcore, as was everyone at that point.
Yeah.
You know, Ian Mackay, emo starts. I'm not interested in that at all. You know.
Well, also, let me just say, it seemed to it was a DC thing in a lot of ways. It was like, oh, the DC guys are like, we're over hardcore. We're done.
I definitely got stuck in that regard. I definitely got stuck with that for sure. But you know what?
It happened everywhere. Yeah.
Can I just say, in fairness, though, DC bands were the best. I mean, I'm not going to get too into it, but I saw Agnostic Front with John Watson singing.
Yeah.
That's nothing pretty to write home about.
Yeah. I
saw them get like laughed off stages, you know? So it's like, it took a long time for New York to get its thing, but when it got it, it was undeniable.
Absolutely.
And you know, I spent like a lot of we were talking about this one time, but like, you know, I spent a lot of the late 80s and early 90s, like, you know, I was one of like a half dozen people writing about these bands. You know, like I had a magazine, I wrote for all these other magazines, and, you know, it was like, you know, who was writing about the Madball single, and who was interviewing, you know, I interviewed Roger Moret from jail and John Joseph from the Brig.
Right.
You know, I mean, like, come on. Like, I know all these guys. I was best friends with Jerry Williams. I was with him when he died. You know, it's like, I know the whole thing. It's like, I almost feel like I've been too quiet about all this. So some people are like, yo, what does that dude know about hardcore? I'm like, maybe I just kept my mouth shut and did my work.
There he is. There he is. The unsung hero of the New York hardcore, right there. Jerry Williams. That's right.
So he was, you know, of course, he did the sound for the Bad Brains. He made that cassette, which is still like the recording. He did the Beastie Boys' first record. he's the one who instilled the whole ethic of vegetarianism and spiritualism and all that. You know, it's
He
like,
was he was a
how much
kind
time do you
soul.
think I spent with these fucking guys? You know, anybody from the Cro-Mags, like, you know, any of it. You know, it's like I spent so much time writing and doing, and you know, like, you know, not really even that, you know, equally interested at that point. I was so equally interested in other kinds of music too. You know, I feel like for me, hardcore is something that always kind of drags me back. Like, in other words, it's like, you know, I try to move on, but inevitably this is who I am or what I did, and I value it, and I value my tribe, so I'm okay with it. But it was not my design. I mean, right now when they write my epithet or whatever, it'll be about American hardcore. So I'm okay with that. But I'm just saying, it's like, it's something that's so entrenched in me that I can't get away from it.
Absolutely. I can relate to that 100%. And I think that through the shifting sands of time, hardcore is I think, in retrospect, is recognized as a real valid form of Americana. And there's a real cultural significance to it that wasn't there when we were kind of living, that wasn't recognized when we were living it, but it's something that keeps getting referenced and gone back to, you know, all these years later. You know, so many people have entered through the arts through the portal of hardcore. You know, some real big superstars like Duff McKagan or Moby or whatever. It's like you, me, this one, that one. You know, we've all gone through this portal of hardcore, and I think hardcore gets referenced a lot as sort of this sort of primitive yet pure and righteous art form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've always felt that. It's like I thought I was the perfect person to write about all this stuff because I'm not so caught up in it. I'm not really
right.
I mean, I love it, but I'm not enamored of it. Like,
that's right.
There's a lot of ugly truths. You know, one thing I learned from hardcore is that there's certain stories where there is no black and white. There is stories where everyone's wrong.
That's right.
And there's a lot of that in this world, you know, and it's like, that's the answer to a lot of questions. It's like, well, what side are you on with the Cro-Mags battle? Well, I gotta say, honestly, nobody's right. Like, really, nobody is right. You know, you're all wrong. I always love the idea that a friend of mine, I'm trying to remember who to credit for this. It was, anyway, but their idea was the Cro-Mags should reunite with the 5 of them in like individual lion cages. So they don't actually touch each other, but they just play the show.
The past is dead, you know. It's like, long live the past.
No, right. No, I'm with you on that, but I'm just saying, it's like there's like a lot of like, it's a pretty ugly. Like, if you want to, it's hard to remain a fan when you know a lot of the ugly truth.
Well, I before we take a break here, I got to do a sponsor thing. I always say, like, to have sort of, I hate to use the word career in hardcore, you have to have a pretty good jaw. You know what I mean? You have to have a strong jaw, because if you're going to get upset when people talk out the side of the neck and insult you and this and that, then it's not going to work. I mean, I know, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. I know you've endured, you know, quite a bit of criticism for your art. I have as well. But now, like, I sort of, I don't want to say I laugh it off, but it's just part of the gig. Yeah. And when somebody goes, "Yo, did you see what so-and-so?" I said, I love that guy. You know, it's like, it's all part of the silliness at this point. I try not to let it really bother me. It's what hardcore, it's like as soon as someone is crawling out and is going to be successful, it will pull them back in and reduce them to slime. You know?
Henry Rollins once described it. He said to me, I'll never forget, it was he talked about getting over the wall.
Yeah.
It was like his struggle was to get over the wall.
Right.
And he did get over the wall. But so that's what you struggle with a little bit. I don't really, I mean, nobody's that, you know, it's kind of interesting that I've heard people are like, "Yo, did you hear blah blah blah?" But nobody's actually said anything to me. I mean, we're now going on 20
you
years.
mentioned that, but you caught. Well, you know what? Let me take a break here. Let's come back and talk about Seconds Magazine and American Hardcore and sort of the grief, that was out there and all that. So I'll see you in a couple minutes, okay?
You bring it.
What's happening? This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and our guest today is author, filmmaker Steve Blush, and we are sponsored by The Organic Grill, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chachos Tacos, Generation Records, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, and New York Hardcore Comics opened in 2013, selling comic books, punk rock, and hardcore memorabilia, toys, statues, skateboard decks, tapes, vinyl, and all things horror. We love helping bands push their demos and new tracks, so please stop by and drop off your new music. We have in-store events like Magic the Gathering and Warhammer tournaments, plus meet and greets with bands and some live performances. Open 7 days a week and shipping worldwide. Find us online through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and eBay. Located at 117 Main Street in lovely Dobbs Ferry, New York. www.newyorkhardcorecomics.com. Come on now. Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, located in Lakewood, Colorado, is the Rocky Mountain headquarters for all things punk, hardcore, and metal. Established in 2014, they have the largest selection of records, CDs, shirts, stickers, patches, and accessories between Chicago and Los Angeles. From the pit to the ditch, they got your back. Get in touch with them at www.chainreactionrecords.com. Come on now, just want to remind you, here is the next 4 shows coming up. Let me clear the deck. What the heck? Coming up, Sunday, February 27th, our guest will be Kevin Castle Scandato, talking about the 20-year history since the closing of Castle Heights, a little bit of a Castle Heights reunion. And while we're on the subject of early Boston hardcore, Sunday, March 13th, our old friend, executive producer of XXX All Ages XXX, the Boston hardcore film that I directed, Mr. Dwayne Lucia, who ran the Gallery East, which was a venue that was pivotal in early Boston hardcore history. Sunday, March 17th, from Sub-Zero, Madball, Hatebreed, and Scarhead, Mr. Riggs Ross will be on the show. And just a reminder there that this Sunday, if it's free, it's for me, at the Bowery Electric, Sub-Zero, Murderers Row, Darkside, NYHC, Cropsey, and Skitopolis. The show is free, you friggin' bum. Get your ass down there. If nothing else, to come down and buy the Agnostic Front puzzle. Limited. All proceeds go to Roger Moret. The limited edition Victim in Pain 500-piece puzzle will be available for $25 at the show. Mark Yoshi from Generation Records. Boom, Generation Records. Mark Yoshi from Generation Records will be there selling the puzzles. Come on now. Take your yarmulke off. Get your ass down and buy the puzzle. What else? Want to mention? Oh, you know what? That's right. You know what? Let's do this. There is a Patreon page where you can support the show. That's how the show happens, because of your support. And all my patrons, if you are watching the show and you are a patron of mine, I made this announcement on the Patreon page to some of the upper tier people. There's a bunch of these left. Just got into a box of a bunch of t-shirts. There's 3 different styles. There's the A7 Back to the New York Hardcore Roots Music Series shirt. There is the New York Hardcore logo from the New York Hardcore Chronicles film that I did. And there is an A7 compilation. These shirts are free for all my patrons. All you got to do is just send the shipping. So if you are a patron, now I don't have a lot of sizes. I got mostly smalls, mediums, got all kind of the odd sizes. That's why they all ended up in a box. I rediscovered the box. It's free for all the patrons. If you want one of these and you're a small or a medium, reach out. You just got to pay the shipping. I'll send you one. Really cool shirts. So one of the cool things you get if you're wearing the first one right now. There you go. Yeah, reach out, Chris. I got mediums, mostly mediums, and a bunch of smalls. I don't know how many larges I have, Hegs. I might have one or two left. So you got to reach out. Johnny Wolf got my book last week. Came super quick. Awesome. Yes. Speaking of the book, speaking of this book, this is the New York Hardcore Chronicles, Volume 1, 1980 to 1989. I still have some books left. If you're a patron, it's free. If you're not a patron, it's $24.95. www.stonefilmsnyc.com. This is the second printing. They're all numbered. I'll sign it for you. There's a couple left. Support the show, buy the book, or join Patreon. Really, that's the great mode of support for the show. As you know, if you are a fan of the show, which many of you are, or you're just coming through here for the first time, this Patreon is what enables me to do this fakakta show. So, and I thank you all for your support. I really mean that. Yeah, good book. Thank you. Help Drew help you. Yeah, I might have a large if you want. What does that mean? Fuck Drew, I love to MWDI. What is MWDI? No fatso. Don't have any English. All you fat guys took all the XL shirts. That's why I'm left with all these friggin' smalls and mediums, because all you fat fucks took the big shirts already. I might have one double XL or something. So there you go. Anyway, I'm just joshing you, and I truly, really appreciate your support. I want to shout out a couple of my new patrons: Paul Bayford, Victoria Lynn, Raymond Hogan, Ray Hogan, my great supporter, Mick Lambro, and Gabrielle Nodet. All patrons new to the game and contributors. There's also, you can see there's a PayPal address there, stone4124@aol.com. That's right. Me, Jesus, and Moses, we still have our AOL addresses. Please. I learned so much Yiddish slang on this show. That's funny. Good, Meshuggah. So that said, let's keep. I think I covered everything. The T-shirts. Listen, I mean it. For you patrons, reach out to me. Let me get these friggin' shirts out of my apartment. Better you than me. Bowery Electric shows we talked about. There's one coming up on Sunday. There's no show a week from today because we'll be at the Bowery Electric, slam dancing the matinee away. And yo, come on now, we got to get down with that agnostic front puzzle. So that said, let me clear the deck. And let's bring our guest, Stephen Blush, back on. And hold on. And I got news for you also about today's show. It's going to go a little long. Now that we know that the Kansas City game is a total blowout, right? I think it's even more of a blowout now. So now that we know that it's a total blowout, we're not in a rush to get off here. So show's going to go a little long today. So don't be scared. Let me find what I want for our. Okay, here we go. Let's get Steve back on. Hey, man.
How you doing?
I
I got a long one to go. I by the way, I did notice all the slide you were pulling, so I thought that was pretty good.
Things just, we have fun on the show. Listen, I just want to say we're going to talk to Steve about his vinyl. We'll get to that. So everybody keep it. Oh, 2110, huh? They're not coming back. 2110.
2110 to score, yeah.
No.
They could.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about. I know we're skipping around here, but I want to get to. I want to talk about Seconds Magazine, and because there's a lot there, and I know that like, how did you start writing? What was the impetus to hey, I'm writing. How did you go down that?
Well, just like I had started being a promoter with zero experience, I decided to be a writer with zero experience. I mean, I did write something for my school paper that was very well received after I got. I spent a night in jail in Baltimore with a police sweep with a parking lot at an MDC show. So
You got arrested at an MDC show in Baltimore.
pretty badass, right? If you're gonna get busted for anything, you get busted at an MDC show.
And how does that work? Like, you're a punk rocker, you're in a parking lot, we're arresting you? Like, what
Yeah,
was
we had open beers.
open beer? That'll get you arrested in Baltimore, where the friggin' city's burning half the time. And
And like, there's only like seriously, there's like 10 breweries even back then. The city was dirt poor, but they had like a zillion breweries. But
unbelievable.
anyway, so I knew I could write. I went to college, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I read a book by some publisher, and he said, one thing I'd advise is don't get into the publishing business, was the conclusion of the book.
Sure.
So of course I went into the publishing business, and I created like something that was, you know, created a culture unto itself, and it upheld a certain ethic. The ethic was, you know, write about music that you love and speak your truth about the music, which is not a good way to operate a business that's basically based on bullshit, you know? So, you know, it's just basically so the friends of mine who had magazines that basically did whatever the companies did very well. And I actually did okay. I mean, I supported I'm joking about this, but I did an individual endeavor that at one point had 6 employees, and I was able to survive for close to.
Are you talking about Seconds Magazine?
Seconds Magazine, yeah. So I was able to. By the 90s, I was actually doing pretty well.
You know? When I think, I guess we'll just jump right to it. When I think of Seconds Magazine and that era, I think of 2 bands that like really come to mind that I associate with Seconds Magazine, that I sort of learned about through Seconds Magazine. That would be Soundgarden and Faith No More. Yeah. Is that fair for me to?
Yeah, that's pretty. I would say that's excellent. That's pretty much the 2 bands that we, you know, Typo Negative was another one.
Sure.
But really, the ones that really spoke national acts, those were 2 bands I was actually personally friendly with. You know, I have gold records still, you know, from all those bands, and I worked with them, and they were all punk rockers. Yeah. So I have a great story. So about you put the Typo Negative cover on there. So I had a very interesting relationship with Pete Steele, because my girlfriend in the late 80s and early 90s was best friends with the girl who Pete wrote all his songs about, like, I'm going to kill you, bitch, you know, kind of like, so that was her best friend. So I kind of hung out with him. The story I would hear was like, oh, Pete is such a gentleman, you know. And I'm like, okay, the guy from Carnivore. Anyway, so I ended up like socializing with him. I'd almost called them double dates, maybe. That I would go out with Pete. And I remember the first time I met the Ratajic family in Canarsie, maybe. You know, his mom, and she's like, mom is it's something out of like a movie. She's like smoking cigarettes, hanging clothes out on a drying line, not a dryer, and she's like cussing, digging up the N-word and fucking kikes and, you know, like all this shit, you know. They're like, oh, this is what Pete's a product of, right?
Right.
You know?
And he worked for the Parks Department at the time,
Yes, he did.
right?
And he did. They did not tour because he had a great job at the Parks Department, and Louis drove a bus.
Right. And I remember when Typo Negative did go on a tour. I think it was the Motley Crue tour. He was calling in sick from the tour every day. It was like a 3-week tour. He like took 2 weeks vacation and then was actually calling in sick for a week so they could tour with Motley Crue. And then eventually he quit that job because, hey, let's be frank, that job has great health benefits, and, you know, and coming from the kind of family, I guess it was like, you know, you can't quit that job, you know?
Yeah, no, so it was like totally crazy. So he had a roadie, and that roadie, so you could follow this. So the roadie is Evan Seinfeld.
Yes, of course.
Right. And Evan at that point has like, you know, feathered hair and furry boots and you know, so I got this, and you know, Pete had named the band, so I didn't have the greatest view and then they were with this crazy label called Energy, who didn't put out the first record until the second record came out, or like something weird like that, right? Like
yeah, they got off to a sort of auspicious beginning. Yep.
Yeah, so it was like I always felt kind of bad. I did do a Seconds cover story. That was
there you go,
important one. But I always felt like I didn't have the right vibe for. In fact, I'll use this as an apology because I just got off to a bad start with that. But,
it happens.
Yeah. But so anyway, so I think you originally asked about Soundgarden, Faith No More. Those are bands that I was also writing about them for Spin and things like and Paper and Interview and Details and but Seconds was my love, and that's where I did all that's us from like some paparazzi shot, me and Kim Thale. And it was I love those bands, and they didn't look. They're great bands. They're super famous, but they're not A1. It's still like Nirvana and like Metallica, and not Faith No More and Soundgarden. It's something like that. But so, but yeah, what great bands! What influential bands they were. And I was kind of like since they were all punk. See, what all those bands had in common again was that they were punk rockers.
Yep.
Right. So all those guys, Faith No More comes out of the San Francisco punk scene. They were called Faith No Man when they started. Soundgarden, I learned about through Mike Borden of Faith No More, because Soundgarden started as a 3-piece with Chris as the drummer singer. And that's how far back I went with them.
Here's a great shot of you and Faith No More. This is a great shot.
Yeah, there you go. Biggest mistake Faith No More ever made was getting rid of the guy on the far right, Jim Martin.
Yeah, he was sort of the legitimate metal dude in the band.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, you get rid of the guy who's best friends with Metallica and Guns N' Roses, right? So that's a good move. So
I found it interesting. I was looking through my stuff to do the show. I found an interesting shot of you, me, and just by chance the Roddy, is he the keyboard, right?
Yeah.
You remember this? You remember this night?
Yeah, that's the night of the release of the New York Rock Book. Yeah, there you go. That's Roddy Bottom and Frank White, the guitarist. The photographer in the back.
The photographer, yeah. Yep.
So so that's a relationship that's endured, right? Those are guys. Those were guys who I was around when Roddy came out. That was very radical for a punk band.
And boy, is he out, man! That dude's the outest now.
Yeah. No, he's like totally out of control, but it's great. It's great.
No, he does his thing. Good for him. God bless him.
So so again, this all tied back to punk,
right?
And I'm doing, and also another part of this is you saw those photos. It's like I came from that Black Flag school where if you want to be the most anti-punk, you grow your hair really long.
Right.
You want to be like the most non-punk you could be. I was not like a metal. I was not a headbanger. You know what I'm saying?
Is this a wedding? You guys are in?
Stefan Shirazi's first wedding. The writer is Stefan Shirazi, who works with Metallica.
Got it.
Yeah, that's a horrible photo, but okay. But that's how it was. But that's how we were living. So, it's like it's really funny that I knew Soundgarden for like 5 years until they found out that I had worked with No Trend, who Malfunction and Soundgarden opened for No Trend when we went out to Seattle. So that was kind of cool how that all worked. So anyway, so I saw grunge as an extension of punk, and I think I was right about that.
Oh, here's another one. I'm sorry. To me, honestly, looking back, this is the quintessential Seconds cover. Like to me, this is at this point. We were
on fire at that point. I got to say.
Yeah, this is, you had the format down. Yeah. I mean, you did an incredible from 1986 to 2000, you did 51 issues of Seconds magazine.
Yep. It was intense. It was intense. It was really intense, and it was like the market was like, as I said, it's not like people wanted this. You know, it was like I've created an art that created its own demand. You know, because I knew that people do like. I mean, you look at that cover. Look who's in that magazine. I mean, that's like
Voivod, Skinyard.
Yeah, but look at the top one. Public Enemy. Nirvana's the small band. Look, Public Enemy, Nirvana, Jethro Tull, and Tin Machine, which is David Bowie. Yeah, right.
Hey, here's a legit. Let's take a question while we're at it. Andrew Vandenberg says, looking at those covers, it makes me kind of think of zines like Cord or Sliver. Was Steven influenced by those zines, and what are some zines he really liked?
I don't actually. You know, it's funny. I actually thought I knew zines pretty well. Are those modern zines? Maybe, I don't know.
I'm not sure. But zines in general, were you influenced?
Yeah, there was a fanzine store called See Here.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. And that was a really big influence on me. The whole culture. But I was, you know, I was doing something a little bit slicker, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But of course, the art, it was hugely influential. And yeah, I mean, you know, the hardcore fanzines, of course, right? You know, I really liked, you know, Maximum Rock and Roll was really important, but I don't think that was like my favorite magazine. I think I was more of a flip side writer because it was more about the music. I really liked the Boston fanzines. I mean, the Boston fanzines were great. You know, Mike Gitter's fanzine was great.
XXX, yep.
Yeah, there was a bunch of really good fanzines that came. So, like, fanzine culture was important. I mean, anytime there was a fanzine, I picked it up and looked at it. You know, Jack Rabbit was a big one. Jack Rabbit was
the big takeover.
Takeover, super important. You know, so.
Sure.
And I also liked one of the guys in what's the name of that fanzine? One of the guys in one of those bands that was one of the first Revelation bands at a fanzine.
Oh, Schism.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
Purcell and them. So, like, I always think of, like, in a certain way in that era that you were very influential at the grassroots breaking and exposing these kind of bands. And I see, you know, I guess, you know, you got a Soundgarden Gold record, you got a Faith No More Gold record. What's the one in the middle? I can't figure that middle one out.
That's Tool.
Tool.
Yeah,
of course.
I had a lot to do with Tool when they broke on the first two records, for sure.
Right.
So yeah, I was right in the middle of that. And you know what? I gotta say, this is an interesting story. It's like, you know, life is a search for meaning. And I remember there's a very pivotal moment for me was in the late 90s, being with Soundgarden. May have been where that photo was taken. It was a New York hotel bar. Like, I remember, like, that. If it was that night, I remember it's like a movie. You walked out to flashing lights. You know, it was like a paparazzi scene for Soundgarden.
How about this?
But that wasn't the problem. Was that I was sitting there, and they're all drinking, and they're all being barroom philosophers, and I'm thinking, there's so many people who'd be dying to do what I'm doing, and I'm bored stiff. And it was like a really big moment for me, where it was like this entree I was given into this industry has very little meaning.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so you
think you want something, and then you get it, and you just realize, like, yeah,
that's what it was. It was that moment. That was the moment. Yeah, and it was with Soundgarden. I had this moment. And I mean, we maintained a relationship, but I don't think I really hung with them after that. And not meaning them in per se, but like my whole attitude changed. And right around that time, there was a History of Rock and Roll series. I want to say it was on PBS. And there was like a 12-part series. That's Killing Joke on My Couch.
Killing Joke, right where you are right now, right?
Yeah, basically, yep.
Yeah.
A different part of the wall, yeah, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. And yeah, so there they are, like smoking joints with Killing Joke or the Orb or
Yeah.
whatever. That's what happened over here. So and I was also working at High Times, so I was like doing the first like bands were like when I started writing for High Times, the record companies would give me the phone number of an artist that I want to interview and say, don't tell them where you got it. Right? That's how they viewed High Times at that point. I had enough in with them to get the info, but I couldn't.
That's funny.
They couldn't.
Now
take credit
the as it says, your book 45 Dangerous Minds is the most intense interviews from Seconds Magazine. I get at a certain point you kind of circle back and edited it and put it together in a book form, huh?
Right. So that comes about 10 years later from the moment I'm
Sure.
talking about. So I'm kind of Seconds Magazine doesn't end like overnight, but it's just my view changed and it just started winding down. I just lost the enthusiasm the last 3 or 4 issues, which it's really a shame because the magazine was so good at that point. It was so good. But I just lost my will. And a lot of it was, okay, so right around that time, late 90s, there's a series, I want to say it's on PBS, about the history of rock.
Sure.
And
that was a big deal. That was a big
right.
doc series.
Yeah. It was a very, very big story and really well done, except it goes from like, it goes from like the Clash to Nirvana, like nothing happened in between.
That's right.
And it infuriated me. And then with Seconds, I interviewed the dude from Rancid, the one with the mohawk. I was with 2 of them, but what's his name? I forget his name. Fredrickson, something.
Oh, Lars.
Yeah.
Lars.
So I'm with both those guys. I'm with 2 of the guys, and like I had long hair, so he might have misread me, but he's like trying to school me on punk, and I'm like sitting there knowing he's wrong. Like I know he's wrong, and it's fucking pissing me off. This fucking clown in a fucking mohawk telling me shit about punk rock because he thinks I don't know because I have long hair, and he's wrong because he's been playing a game of telephone for 20 years. So, and there's no history for this stuff. So that inspired me to write the book. And
to write the book
of American Hardcore, my first book.
Yep.
And I didn't really know what I was doing. There was no internet. You didn't like, you didn't call up the operator and ask for the number of Joey Shithead. It didn't work like that. So I used all my contacts from the hardcore days, my contacts from Seconds and being a rock writer. Sometimes, I was able to do it for both. And, like Henry Rollins, I interviewed for a cover story for Seconds. So I also had some spare quotes for the book, like that, those kind of things. But over, I want to say 4 years, over 120 people came and sat on the couch here. And, so, Roger Moret to Mike Ness to, the guys from Pearl Jam to, whoever, they all sat on the couch and we recorded hardcore interviews. Right?
I think I came over at one point.
You absolutely were part of it.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
You're a part of this that I'll bring up in a second too, is so that was kind of like how it was done. And I assembled it and reassembled it and rewrote it 4 times. And again, there was no internet to check a lot of stuff.
Yep.
But I called everyone I could, and pretty much anyone in the band told me like who I knew, like they would tell me about their band or other bands, That was about the best fact checking you could get. But it was pretty succinct, and it was, a huge endeavor because I had toured with, again, and
also let me say, let me just interject that, I mean, certainly in retrospect, you were like the first one to go out and try to tackle this thing as a whole.
Yeah.
Not just my city, my little scene, but you were the first one that made any sort of attempt to tackle this American hardcore thing and try to wrestle it to the ground.
That's right.
Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but in the way I look at it, knowing what I know, what goes into these type of things, and the commitment and just the greed and just everything that goes into it, like you deserve a medal and a monument just for being the first one out of the gate to have the balls to try to tackle the friggin' thing.
Yep. Well, thank you. I mean, I certainly know that there's been many books and films that have come out from the two projects, and
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, it all comes back to American hardcore. We mentioned Jerry Williams, and Jerry Williams said to me when he saw the film, he's like, "This is a brilliant film, but it's going to take 10 or 20 years for people to get it."
Jerry, boy, he's so missed, man. He's Jerry Williams was the unsung hero of the New York hardcore scene. He was a kind soul. He always had he was that guy. Damn, God damn.
Whenever I was in Los Angeles, I would make the pilgrimage to go see him.
Yeah.
And plus I like being there. I love the desert as well, but it was really nice to be with him. But I took on a huge subject. I made it happen. A lot, what you learn from these projects is that there's a lot of bitter people.
Sure.
And
don't you know how big my band was? We rehearsed in my mother's basement twice. Yeah. We changed the planet Earth. Your book sucks. Yeah. My band, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. We changed the planet Earth. We rehearsed in my mother's garage twice. Your band sucks and you suck.
Yeah, so I had a woman review the book for the Fort Lauderdale newspaper. I forget the big newspaper, whatever it's called there, and Sun Sentinel, I think it's called.
Yeah,
and
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, why did you write that shitty review that wasn't even true? I don't even care about a shitty review, but why did you write this shitty review? And she goes, well, I didn't know anything about your subject, but my husband was in a band and he said it was bullshit. And I'm thinking, like, that's your credibility, So look, it's not easy to make a movie like this. I don't, the accolades are there. It's at the end of the day, everyone compares it to it, and the book still sells more than it, and the film still sells, and it's it's still on Starz Network, and it's it's like whatever.
I want to say this about American Hardcore, the film, is that sure, there's plenty of criticism for the book. The first edition of the book, people said New York didn't get treated right. New York deserves better, and everybody sort of started chirping, and there was all this grief and all this drama. And then the film came out, and I read the book. I saw the film. And I said to myself, you know what? Boston wasn't really represented that well. You know what? I think I could do better. And it inspired me to go out and make XXX All Ages XXX, the Boston hardcore film. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's what this stuff's about.
That's exactly what
and that's what and then when I made the Boston hardcore film, and when I was doing Q&As, I say, I challenge you. If you think you could do better, I challenge you to go out and do better. That's what this is about. Instead of talking out the side of your neck about blah, 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 and doing nothing about it and contributing nothing, get off your friggin' ass and do something yourself. If you think you can do better, do it.
That's right. I staked my claim. I'm okay.
Yeah, no, I know you have, bro. And
yeah.
I know you have.
But it is distressing when you hear, but as I said, nobody's actually ever said this to me. Right. It's like I've never had anybody in my face.
You've mentioned that. That's interesting.
Which says to me,
they say shit to you.
Well, but that says something too, right? It's like, are you really going to say that to me?
Right.
So, it's like you mentioned some people. Those people have certainly never said anything to me. So it's like, I stand by what I did. I'm still, it's like the people go Marilyn Manson sucks, or like Slayer sucks, or it's okay. Well, be them. Do that.
Well, circling back here, of course. Look, the first copy came out. The first edition came out. Maybe you felt it was a little anemic at a certain point. You circled back and really beefed the second edition of American Hardcore. You really beefed it up. It's really healthy, man.
I think so. I think the second edition of American Hardcore is the best book I ever wrote.
God damn right. Good.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
a big fan of New York Rocks, but I hear what you're saying, because I think to a certain extent with a book like that, and I can relate to it in some of my films. You just know how much went into it, and how much went into it, and again and again and again. And sometimes things click, like in my world, for instance, the Alago film I directed.
Mm-hmm.
Who the fuck is that guy? The Fabulous Journey, Michael Alago, went to Netflix, and people say, that's probably the best film I've done. It's just a good film, not because I did it, but there's a first act, a second act, a third act, and it plays itself out. It's just a good film, not just because I did it, but that's probably the best film I've done. And I hear what you're saying. The second edition of American Hardcore is just damn good, man.
Yeah. I really nailed it on that, because I just didn't have the facility. I mean, the book went to the publisher. I sent it to the publisher. It might have been the end of 1999, if not the beginning of 2000. I mean, it was a very different technological world. But I do find it interesting that people kind of circle their wagons on what their art is. But at the end of the day, American Hardcore still stands. So I'm fine with all of it.
And it inspired so much. It set so many boats out onto the sea. People, like now.
We just say, would any of these bands be touring if it wasn't for or still revival? If I hadn't put all this stuff into context? I mean, really.
When we did the Boston Hardcore film, I think you did American Hardcore. We did the Boston Hardcore film soon after. We did a film about the Boston Hardcore scene. Right now, sitting here, there's probably 50 films about the Omaha, Nebraska hardcore scene, the San Francisco. Like anybody who's at the forefront. It's like after we did the Boston Hardcore film, everybody just started saying, hey, let's do a film about our scene. I did the New York Hardcore Chronicles film. It basically sets so many things into motion. And how many books about it just sets so many things into motion, man. It is I think certain things, it's the way I feel about it, about certain artists. Like, to me, like, people's personal opinions are irrelevant when it comes to certain artists. They changed the world. So whatever your puny little opinion is, I think the Beatles suck. I think Nirvana sucks. I think Bob Dylan sucks. Who cares, bro? What the fuck have you done? These people changed the world as we know it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put myself on that level, but I do know that within this culture, I changed a lot.
Yeah, here you go. Damien says, right on. Everyone's a critic and thinks this or that is missing in any artwork. So go make something that's better, dude. Put the sweat and time in to create something, or shut the hell up and show appreciation for the work. Yeah, exactly.
Damien. Way to go, Damien.
Welcome to my world. Yeah. And Tony Mann, our dear friend, and I know you work with him an awful lot. Tony says, there's always going to be something left out. Sometimes the people won't participate or complain later. And I know, and I saw this when I saw American Hardcore, the film that you did with Paul Rackman, who directed it. When I saw, the Misfits aren't in it. Well, you try to track down Glenn Danzig and get him. He ain't doing it. So.
And that was at the point where they weren't talking.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Hey,
so it's I mean, it's like, can you imagine if I got Jerry? How am I going to get him? You know what I'm saying?
Al Burrell isn't in my Boston Hardcore film. Does that mean I should shut it all down and not not do the film? No. You make an adjustment. I got the other 4 guys in the band, and you forge on. That's what you do. We're making art here.
Yep. With you.
I enjoyed this book quite a bit. Really deep in New York music history. This was a cool book, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a really good book. I thought that was going to be like my big breakout. Because I signed with St. Martin's, and
sure,
the book was really what I gave them. It's kind of like you're like the band that got the shitty record cover, and I thought them. I did not want that cover. I had a Michael Levine photo of White Zombie from 1985 or something, where it looks like something crawled out of a sewer.
Right.
And my book is not really about, I didn't do this so they could do a send off on Please Kill Me's cover.
Yeah. Good point.
And I was really mad at them about that. And I really said, you can't put my name on that.
Yeah, good point.
It was kind of like poison the experience for my great book, but it is the words of the book are great. Yeah. And it's really like the history of downtown New York. It's like the world that I love, and it's kind of starts with what the Velvet Underground created and ends
the early that era that you touch on. The first part of this book, I learned so much. Just about the early music. Like you said, Velvet Underground, even before Thugs, whatever, that era, I learned an incredible amount from this book. Yeah.
And a lot ended up on the cutting room floor, of course, too. But yeah, the incredible history that I go into of the early glitter rock, or the hippie scene, like you said, or post punk, or the 80s East Village noise scene, or the biker rock bands that played at the Lismar Lounge and at the Limelight, or it's all there. It's all there. The degeneration scene at Coney Island High.
That's where I saw Tony Mann the other night at the Jesse Malin show.
Yeah, Dancing in the Dark for sure.
Yeah. Let me do my last shout out to my sponsors, and let's come back and let's talk a little bit about kind of like the record collection a little bit. And we'll take some questions from around the world. Okay,
let's do it.
See you in a minute. Well, there you go. It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Our guest today, Mr. Stephen Blush, author and musician. We are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chacho's Tacos, Generation Records, and Organic Grill. It's a vegan restaurant located in the East Village of New York City at 123 First Avenue, featured in New York Magazine, New York Times, and Veg News. Their dishes have won numerous awards, including Best Goddamn Veggie Burger. They make their own cheeses, sausages, and burger patties, and every dish on the menu could be made gluten-free. This year, they're celebrating their 22nd anniversary, and they're all about having a great time while enjoying amazing, clean food. They have now fully reopened for business and look forward to seeing you. Get in touch with them and order some great food at www.theorganicgrill.com. Also, Mark Yoshi and everyone down at Generation Records, since 1992, they've been a mainstay in the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as T-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. Get that crap out of your house. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com. Follow them on Facebook and or Instagram. Last but not least, DTFM Vinyl Distro is a record store that specializes in underground music, punk, ska, hardcore metal, and more. Located in the heart of Fargo, North Dakota's industrial district, shop in person or online at www.dtfmvinyldistrict.com, where the motto is death to false metal. Just real quick, want to mention again, Sunday matinees are back on the Bowery, starting with a week from today. Don't be shy. Come on down. Sunday, February 6th, our first show back is Sub-Zero, Murderers Row, Dark Side, NYC, Cropsey, and Scythopolis. The month after that, March 20th, 24/7 Spies, 8 Neighborhood Shiznit, Serial Poets, and Iconicide. And then the big banger, Rampage Mosh Fest 3. Fahrenheit 451, Rebelmatic. We are doing a High and the Mighty reunion. Ma'afa, Ape, Scum City, Fright, and Bride Riot. The shows are free. They're all ages. Come out and support them. Don't make me come looking for you. What else do I need to mention? One more quick time. One more in quick time. If you're wondering, there you go. Support the show. There it is. We're doing questions. If you have a burning desire, we have a super chat for a couple bucks. It comes through in color. It goes right to the front of the line. So that said, and also all you patrons, don't forget, I got a bunch of these smalls, mediums, a couple of other ones. They're free. Just pay the shipping and get me your address, and we'll get it out to you. And the book. Do you have this book? You should have this book. It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles, Volume 1, 1980 to 1989, a flyer oral history. It is dope. You can get it at www.stonefilmsnyc.com. All right. What else? I think we're good. Is everybody okay? Let's take some questions. Let's poke around a little bit more. Let's bring our guest, Mr. Stephen Blush, back on. Now that I managed to ruffle a few feathers, let's bring our guest back on the show.
So one of you guys said, like, yo, is he even a New Yorker? And I'm like, when did you just tune in, brother?
Yeah, right. Well, listen, you get all types. Aaron Collins, our friend from
I love Aaron Collins. Yo, Aaron Collins, how you doing?
Respect to both of you. As an outsider who actually ended up living a part of it, both your films helped me inform me of history before me. You made some dope films. Fuck the haters. Yeah. Here's a question from RS70. Did you ever skate or write graffiti? What was your first show?
I never skated. I never did graffiti. Never had a tattoo. Never had a piercing. So I'm not that hip in a lot of.
What was your first show? Froze? Looks like he froze. All right. Come on back. All right, he'll sign back on. Give him a minute. Let me see what else. I find myself trying to say the sponsor names as fast as Drew throughout the week. I know, right? It gets to you, right? What else? Darren, what's up, man? Thank you. We're waiting for Steve to come back. He'll sign back on in a second. Let me see what else. You know what we got to ask him about? Check this out. Wait. Where is... I got to ask him about the signed Led Zeppelin 1 record. Signed Led Zeppelin 1 with $1.99. Hey, what's the story with the Led Zeppelin 1? $1.99 sounds record, bro. How mint is that?
So that's the is that signed by both of them or just Robert Plant? No, Robert Plant and Jimmy Page. Yeah, they both signed that, I think.
Yeah.
So I interviewed them both separately and then together. Anyway, but when I was going, St. Mark's Sounds, Free Being and St. Mark's Sounds were right around the corner from each other. I spent lots of time at all of those. But in the 80s, I want to say the mid-80s, mid-late 80s, I would go to Sounds, and anything that was like a classic rock record was in the $1.99 bin. So like anything that was like actually like a or in the 25-cent bin. So like I have it's pretty funny sometimes when I'll get people's autographs. Like Ronnie James Dio is a funny one where I brought him I have a lot of his records because I'd go to Sounds and they were 25 cents or $1.99. So when I came from the autographs, always basically signing are like these super cheap records, So
I'm looking for there's I gotta find the Black Sabbath one. That one is great.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me find the Black
Sabbath. So I've interviewed Black Sabbath in pretty much every incarnation too, right? So and then at the very end I interviewed all 4 of them, and I finally got Bill Ward to sign.
Here you go. Here it is. This is pretty awesome. Boom.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
That's yeah. I mean, but that was the access I had, right?
Yeah.
Or still have in some degree, but I kind of walk away from like a lot of it. So, but yeah, so records were always super important to me. I was a DJ. I was at a lot of clubs in the 80s and 90s and, in Manhattan. And, I kind of had this, like, I was an editor at Paper Magazine. I was an editor. I worked at Details and Interviews. So I had kind of like this hip veneer, tried to kind of play it down a little bit. I think I play everything down a lot, as you're seeing. But I do a lot of things, but I don't always, I'm usually a great promoter of other people and a poor self-promoter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's my record collection. And honestly,
let me ask you something about this record collection. I know records are really heavy. Like those shelves, I would think that those aren't just standard kind of wooden. Those have to be very strong, don't they?
Yeah, they're super strong. In fact, they're all individual. Like what you're seeing, that's just 2 rows. It actually goes a little bit more, but there's 4 sections within those 2.
Hey, Long Brain TV, what's your question, man? I'm sorry I didn't see it. Repost it again. That's interesting. Your guest, Glenn E. Friedman, once said on this show, my show, that Blush's film was instrumental in the glorification and stereotyping of violence in America hardcore. What does Steven think about that?
That's a pretty ridiculous statement by Glenn.
Yeah, seems that way.
I mean, he worked with Black Flag. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, he's mad at me for not being in the film because let me just say this: were 2 great punk photographers in Los Angeles.
Let me guess. One's Glenn Friedman, and the other one's on the show in 2 weeks, and that would be hold on. This guy.
Get your
flyer, please. That would be Mr. Ed Culver coming on the show Wednesday, February 9th. Thank you.
By the way, he doesn't like Ed. He likes Edward, just so you know.
Okay.
You may want to fix that.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah. But so anyway, I realize that there's 2 photographers, and one's really the artist and one's kind of the self-promoter. And I tried to work with Glenn originally on the book, but he was telling me how big I had to print his photos. And
Glenn is an incredibly outspoken guy. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
He's quite a personality. He's a talented guy, and he's a force of nature. That guy.
No, I mean, so he so I mean, Edward Culver is just a genius. Mm-hmm. He did my cover to American Hardcore. He did.
That's right.
He's a big star of the book and the film. I would say about 50 of the photos in the book were his. Definitely helped. The book and the film helped everyone. Helped him. Helped like a lot of great artists, and he's So I'm a big fan. But what would I say about that? Hardcore was violent. I showed footage of mosh pits and talked to the people who were part of it. But I'd say that those are sour grapes. That's what I would say.
Fair enough. I have a picture to go with this question. What is one of Steve's most cherished records? Now, I do know a little bit. I saw you talk about this. What are some of your most cherished records? And
Well, I don't know
explain
if
what
that's one
this
of my.
is.
Sure, I have two. Okay, so I have two of those.
Yeah, what is that?
Okay, that is the first Nirvana 7-inch that numbered of 1,000.
Wow.
So I
On
own
Sub
two.
Pop?
Yeah, on Sub Pop, correct. So I own two of those, and the prices are really off the hook. And if I hope it goes way up, and I could put my daughter through college or something. I mean, really, that's kind of how I'm thinking about a few of these records.
What
What are my favorite? Cherished is a funny word because does that mean your favorite or like your most valuable?
Yeah, right.
To me, it has nothing to do with the value because I didn't pay anything for these things.
Yeah.
I never bought a $20 import.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not. So I don't. It's funny for me to go to stores now because the dollar bin is now the $5 or $10 bin.
Is like what Chucky's asking? What's your favorite vinyl? I mean, I'm assuming you still.
I don't know, man. I got to say I still play Borstal Breakout.
Do you still have all your original Discord records?
I have a lot of them. I have the test pressings. I have the test pressing for Out of Step by Minor Threat. I have a test pressing for the first Scream album.
What's that on?
But there's a bunch of there's some things I'm missing. Like I couldn't find like my Youth Brigade 7-inch, like things like that.
Yeah.
But
what's that with the yellow label to your right? What is that?
This is just I have this. I collect a lot of test pressings and things of that sort, like records that. Wait.
There you go.
Yeah. So. There you go. So
nice.
I just like I have a few of those things. So those are just more for display. I have a lot of those records where you test your stereo. These things they made in the 50s and stuff. Yeah. So I mean, but I mean, obviously I don't have tons of that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that was just a vague thing. But I pretty much, as a DJ, I pretty much would play anything. So I kind of collect everything. So I have every Barry White record autographed, which is pretty dope.
I like this picture here. Boom. What's going on here with this one? Give it a second. It'll come up.
Zakk Wylde.
A very young Zakk
Very
Wylde.
young Zakk Wylde. He did a solo record 1995 or so for Geffen. And I spent like a whole night. I spent like 2 or 3 days with him, actually, a whole night and then a couple days. And I never really hung out with him too much after that, but he did this great record. And I just realized that he was kind of a genius. Like he would just stay up all night and just play music. Like you'd watch this guy and you're like, this guy's like a descendant of Ronnie Van Zant or something.
Right.
I mean, this guy's like coming at it. Like I never really thought of him like that because he's from Jackson, New Jersey, which is kind of like pretty close to where I'm from.
Right.
So, I knew about him, and I knew like there were all these ridiculous like Megaforce bands. There was a band called TT Quick.
Hey, come on now.
And that guy was like his guitar teacher or something.
Yeah.
So I knew all these guys.
TT Quick or Rat Race Choir. Yeah, those bands.
I don't know. And then
Quick, Rat Race Choir, like all that,
I knew Richie Sambora from Pop Warner Football.
Wow.
And Matt Pinfield, who I told you I used to know from high school, would DJ when he was still in New Brunswick at this place in East Brunswick, like some bar restaurant kind of place. And like you'd run into Bon Jovi there. So it's like I knew all these guys. I just knew it was wrong. Like She's a Little Runaway, and that's not me. So and then Matt was like a new wave guy. So he's playing like ABC, Dance 12 Inches, and
Matt did okay. Matt did okay for himself on the alternative circuit,
Yeah, no, I love Matt. He's one of my oldest friends.
He's a nice guy. Here's a question from resident historian Chucky Brown. Can he speak on interviewing rappers back in the 90s? Cypress Hill, Tone Loc, Kid Frost, Ice Cube. I see that, you know, Seconds Magazine was really at the forefront of you know, interviewing a lot of early rap groups. Can you give us some perspective?
Yeah,
on
well,
that?
you know, I mean, my whole thing was that music is, you know, I wasn't you know, we're very tribal. Like, you notice I call it American hardcore a tribal history. So, you know, we're a very tribal society, and a lot of where I'm coming from is just trying to mix it up, you know, and present people. Like I used to do these panels at the New Music Seminar, and I used to moderate them, and a little bit at CMJ when they started.
Sure.
And
you and Mike Schnapp.
Oh yeah, well, Schnapps were a little. Well, let's just say that mine were a little more focused.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I was also coming at it like, you know, mixing the races. Like I did a panel about guns and music. So I had Everlast, Jimmy Gestapo, Richard Kern.
Wow.
Marilyn Manson, Fat Joe, like this crazy mix. And we were all buddies, you know, we all hung out, and that's kind of like where I'm coming from. So it was like I had this friend who was the one who gave Russell Simmons the Malcolm X books that he gave to Chuck D.
Wow.
So, and before, you know, so anyway, I was always following hip hop because it was New York hip hop and DC go-go, right?
Right.
And then like I remember a big deal in DC was when the Swatch Watch tour came through. And it was all like, you know, the break dancers and the Nucleus and Run DMC, and, you know, so it was like the first time those. So anyway, even though I wasn't living in the city at the very beginning, I always had a thing for hip hop, and I was a DJ, so I saw everybody. I actually remember this. I want to say it was a New Music Seminar show, and it was like Queen Latifah, Ice Cube, De La Soul, Two Live Crew, like, and then like a whole bunch of other you know, like all these people, the band that Leaders of the New School, like, you know, like whatever. So it's like I was always kind of down, you know. And you know, of course I had seen like I liked Curtis Blow when he opened for the Clash.
I saw that.
Right.
I was there.
I
I saw that.
Or Grandmaster Flash when he opened for the
Clash. When Curtis Blow and Gregory Isaacs opened for the Clash. That was
right.
Awesome.
And everybody's dropping N-bombs and stuff. And I'm like, you know, I thought it was cool. You know, I was always into it. I loved how the Clash mixed up stuff. You know, I was like,
yeah.
But anyway, so I always had a love of hip hop. So when I went on to like the first issue of Seconds is Beastie Boys' first ever cover. My first kind of like, you know, kind of interview kind of thing. Well, I mean, I'd done another interview, but that was like my first like Seconds magazine. I knew Rick Rubin because of my stuff in DC, and he had a band called Hose, who I never booked, but they were friends with No Trend, and we did some shows at the Pyramid and stuff.
Oh, you know, right out of when he was in NYU, right?
Yeah, right. So he just come out of NYU, and he's like, I remember the young, really young Scott Koenig. I mean, I remember all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh man, Scott Koenig breaks my heart, man. I miss him, man. I miss him. Hey,
So yes, I was there for pretty much the rise of hip hop. I mean, I was editor for all these magazines. So every one of those people, and that's right on. Who I didn't check who sent that message, but that's really right on. I mean, we were right in the forefront of the whole thing. It's like I was, you know, that was Cypress Hill's.
It was an exciting time. It was an exciting time in I want to say American music, because just those years in the 90s there, you had the hip hop thing moving forward, the alternative thing, And the music industry was so vibrant. There was still sort of that archaic infrastructure. There was record labels, there was music videos, people bitch about record, but at least there was an infrastructure back in the day. There was a system. We don't have that. I feel like what's going to happen when all these bands die out? There's no infrastructure people don't give a shit about music the way that they used to. Or think of it very differently now.
No, I gave my life for music, and I kind of see where it stands right now. So it's, wasn't it like something like 70% of the records that sell now are from before 2000?
My kid growing up thought like music was just something in a video game.
Yeah.
I remember explaining to him about this is a vinyl record. This is a vinyl record. We used to go to the stores when it came out, and it was a big deal. So
yeah, I'm really my daughter. I'm really pushing on vinyl. She's had two so far. Her first 2 records for her birthday was the original pressing of Ride the Lightning. I gave her that.
Wow.
And of course she could go through life without a Man of War picture disc.
Is that right? The game it's 21-21. What quarter? What quarter? So I can end the show and see the end of the game.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to ask this question. He's asked it a bunch of times. Why not? Long Brain TV. What does Steven think of the band Mighty Mighty Boss Tones breaking up after nearly 40 years?
Well, I was a little sad to hear that because I had seen them at the Jimmy Gestapo benefit.
Yeah,
you made that happen, right?
Yeah, I did a lot of work to get that. That was a great achievement to get them down into Tompkins Square Park, man. A lot went into that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think look, I don't think Dickie's on a different trip right now, too.
Yeah, he is.
He's living a different life. It's like it's not, it's kind of hard to recreate what you did in your 20s, when you're an older person. But it was sad. It's definitely a landmark for sure.
I think there's stuff in the air right now, and I think, and I don't want to speculate, and we don't talk politics or vax stuff on this show. We talk about music here, but I think there's a lot of stuff in the air on that band, and maybe they're just putting it to rest, and then we'll revisit it when the time and the money is right. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Long Brain TV. That said. Let's see what else. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about this. Do you have a hard out here? Do you got to get? We'll. All right.
I mean, I'd like to catch the game if it's.
We'll get out like at the beginning of the 4th quarter.
There you go. That's good for me. Good for me.
Yeah. Let's talk about this thing. I mean, I think we'd be amiss not to talk about this. You got to you promoted a Gigi Allen show here in New York at the Cat Club. I didn't know about this one. That must have been a friggin' trip. And this was his band, Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth and Kozloy. And what's up with this?
Yeah. So I knew I was booking the Cat Club on Monday nights, and we were doing these cool shows like, Nick Cave and Butthole Surfers and Lydia Lunch and, at this kind of uncool club. I got a call from Michael Board about Gigi Allen, who I was very aware of, knew exactly what he was about. And I kind of had one of those moments of self-sabotage, I guess, where I decided to book the show. And I knew exactly what I was getting into. I don't think Gerald Kozloy played that show. I seem to remember him not being there for some reason.
In the Artless too, yeah.
But yeah, Artless played, and the rest of that band definitely played. And I remember Gigi Allen warning
glass in his ass.
I remember him warning his friends to stand on the whatever side of the stage because he was going stand on the left because I'm going right with my.
Oh wow! Yeah. Did he throw duty around and stuff?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, in his hand, right in people's faces. Yeah.
Oh man.
So that was
what a night.
That was like a big.
What a night!
Yeah, that was a big Village Voice cover story kind of thing, But I was never allowed in the Cat Club anymore after that. But it's ironic because the Cat Club was run by Don Hill,
of course, who you went on to do a lot of work for.
I worked for Don Hill for 7 years.
Yeah,
and it's an amazing story. I stopped doing second. I was about to stop doing seconds, and this gave me the perfect excuse. I did a party for seconds. The record company had no idea why I wanted to do this party, but they gave it to me because there was a record that was they used to advertise late on TV called Monster Ballads, and it was all like hair metal ballads from the 80s. Do you remember that?
I do not. I do not.
Yeah, so there were infomercials for something called Monster Ballads, and it's just like the worst.
Just like Saigon Kick and like more than words.
Yeah, like all that
is
stuff.
All I ever needed you to.
Right, so it's like the worst shit possible, and it's completely the opposite of everything I am. And I just said, let's do this party. I invited Don Hill. No one got the party except for Don. Don said, like, come book my club on Wednesday nights. I ended up having a 7-year run there. By the end, I'm like, please let me quit. But I was coming off of a really bad divorce, and all I had in my life was, I said, leave the book I'm finishing, which was American Hardcore, and don't touch my records. And I started working for Don, and I just booked shows that girls would go to.
Yeah.
And that's all I did for 7 years. And it was
down at Don Hill's.
Yeah. It was called Rock Candy.
Right. Yeah. And the building's still there. Yeah. The building's still there, just sitting there.
Can I tell you something? I'm gonna. I don't know if I'll go to jail for this one, but or get shot for this one. But Don always told me that he never had a lease on the building. That it was a handshake agreement.
Wow.
That the guy who owned it was a mobster.
Right.
And that one day he was going to come back and take his building because there's bodies buried under the building.
Wow.
And that's the only thing that makes sense to me of why that building's still standing there.
Wow.
Because why would a building like this old shitty one-level building be surrounded by multi-million-dollar
and it's still sitting there?
Still sitting there. I believe it'll sit there till the guy dies. He came out of jail for, I thought he said 19 years. I could be wrong, but it was some number like that.
Steen, our friend in Belgium, shouts out his friend Mikel Board. How do you pronounce that? Mikel Board. Michael Board, one of his old friends, and says he still gets a Christmas card from him every year. So
yeah, Michael's good. Michael runs a drinking club down in the Lower East Side. Like, right. That's what I hear. Yeah. There's like.
Where did I see the? Did you write the liner notes on the Big Blunts reggae compilation on Tommy Boys in '93?
Yeah. I wrote. Right? I wrote a lot of liner notes. I wrote best of Cro-Mags, best of Murphy's Law, best of I don't know one other band too.
Right.
I did, but yeah, Big Blunts was a record. It was my connect. I was at High Times also, right? So I was doing all this stuff, and I know the guys who were putting out that great record, which was a compilation of reggae weed songs, included a Cypress Hill remix on it. So so I did that. So I did a lot of liner notes, a lot of press releases, stuff you don't get credit for.
I heard you doing my homework. You said you never got over the closing of Free Being Records. There's a picture I dug up. You see Free Being. I remember Free Being as well. I used to go there in the early '80s and get all my hardcore stuff. And Annette used to run the place. She used to book the Rock Hotel. She was married to Nobby Bones from Broken Bones. But could you give us some perspective on that quote? I never got over the close.
Well, there were certain record stores, and a lot of people said it about Bleecker Bob's, but I never really liked Bleecker Bob's because I didn't like that attitude. I didn't like that, like, fuck you, you can't look at my records attitude.
Yeah, he was tough to deal. He was tough to deal with, man.
Yeah, so I didn't really dig that, and it wasn't like their prices were so good, and it wasn't even particularly close to where I was with, like, especially with my dad's and Christie Street. So but a huge part of my life was on like a Saturday after work, like just walking up Second Avenue to get to Free Being and coming into this alternative universe,
Sure.
which I knew about because I'd been in England, but all of a sudden I could get those records.
Yeah.
Like, so that was like really mind blowing to me. The idea that like, you know, you knew if you came in on a Friday, you could buy the import that came in that week, that day.
Right.
You know, and that was like a huge thing for me. It was like, you know, what record came out that week? You know, it's available. Like they have 10 copies and you could get it on Friday.
Yep.
You know, and it was so musical. You know, I mentioned Matt Pinfield before, but you know, there's a lot of things that were very musicological in my life. People who were very musicological.
Mm-hmm.
He was very musicological, of course.
Well, he's a very knowledgeable music historian.
So just imagine that it was he and I going to his mom's basement and listening to records.
Right.
That's what I did as a kid. I mean, there was other guys too, but I mean that, you know, and I was 2 years younger, which was a big difference. But you know, it was that there. I've always George Petros, Tom Terrell,
Tony Mann,
hugely Tony Mann. You know,
Tony Mann is an incredible encyclopedia of American music history.
You should have said there was a night, if you guys could find it, I know it's available somewhere, is there's an interview that we went on Matt Pinfield's show in San Francisco before he just took this LA job a couple of years ago. But so it was about 3 years ago was when New York Rock came, 3 or 4 years ago when New York Rock came out. And it was Matt, me, Tony Mann, and Mike Borden. And the musicology was so off the hook. I mean, it was just like, it's about the highest level I've dealt with, you know, really. Just like between the four of us really being able to pretty much cover any bit of like weird minor detail. It was really kind of, and it went on for like 3 hours or something.
Here's a cool shot of you, me, Alago, and Paul Rackman, who directed American Hardcore. And
I like the beard.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah,
I might have to grow that back.
Yeah,
my girl won't have that. She's like
no.
Lawrence, Larry the Hunter says, love the Art of the Interview series that you did. That was awesome. You did it at Jesse's Club, Coney Island Baby. Me and Vinny Stigma were part of one, but those were awesome. You did some great work there, man. I mean, you pulled in, you know, some great guys. You know who I love? What's his name from the Heartbreakers? I love that.
Walter Lore.
Walter was great.
Yeah.
Gruen was great.
Yeah.
You know, you did some really great work there. That was an awesome series. You know.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it was just I never had the production down. It's like it was a little too early to do what you're doing right here, which is you know, being able to edit something and get it right out. You know. Right. So so I've always been thinking about like, you know, music in terms of you know, I'm very serious about the music. It's like I do good interviews. Well, you're doing a good interview here, so that's not, you know, has nothing to do with anything. But it's just you gotta research your stuff. You've obviously researched your stuff. It's like that's all anybody expects of you. Like I remember I'm
fortunate. I'm very fortunate that I sort of stepped in at a certain time, and the show is live, and there's a lot of live interaction here, and people support me and enable me to do my homework. I mean, they support me so I can spend days researching my next guest, and I'm very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, no, that's important.
Yeah. Let's wrap. You know, I want to before we go here a little bit on the football thing. A lot of people do not realize that you are basically a New York Jets beat writer, and you are like pretty much the most informed, I'd say, journalist on the current state of the New York Jets. Very interesting job you fell into. How did that come about?
So this is a great story. So there's a singer who I know who used to play at Don Hills, became one of my best friends.
Right.
and she married a very famous football coach,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like in the Hall of Fame. And so all of a sudden,
Are we not going to say his name?
I can't say,
It's okay. I know who you're talking about because
Yeah,
I've seen him.
You met him, right? Yeah.
He came to one of my. He's
Right.
And his wife is super cool. She's like a rocker.
Yeah, right. So like, and I'd bring him like in Mike Schnapp's car,
Right.
crazy hot rod kind of
Right.
thing, or so so I'd always like we were so anyway, so one time I'm hanging out with this guy, and it's like so I get a call from the wife, and she's like, you got to come over because the guys are coming over. And I'm like, the guys are coming over. So it's like every NFL star you've ever seen on TV shows up, like anybody who's like doing the halftime show for this game,
like Phil Simms and
like they're all there.
Boomer
Esiason's there. Like
right.
It's like crazy.
Sure.
I'm talking to one guy, one of the top NFL writers, and I said something about Bill Belichick with the Jets, and he's like, "Oh, I wrote that contract." It's like that level. It's like people like so in on this stuff. So they inevitably go to me, who do you work for? I'm like, what do you mean, who do I work for? And they're like, well, what team do you work for? And I'm like, I don't work for any team. And they're like, oh, we thought you worked for a team because you know so much about this stuff. So I used one of these guys to help me with an introduction. And I ended up working for kind of running this thing called Jet Press, which it goes through Yahoo and whatnot. So it's kind of a big deal. And so I get access. So I'm not like a Daily News or a New York Times writer, but I do get access, and I do get the feeds, right now. So you don't really go to anything, but I get the feeds to every press conference, and I'm allowed to speak, and so I do have a degree, and I've interviewed a few of these guys over time, but so I've kind of like become like a go-to guy for this stuff. A lot of these NFL guys kind of get a kick out of me because like there's one of these guys who's like a big like grunge and metal fan that writes for who writes for AP. And so like, we have a thing and we talk. Or I got to say, I will say one person who's really cool is the guy who covers the NFL very deeply is Jason La Canfora, who's, on Washington Post, and he's on CBS, and he covers the Ravens. He's but he's also a national writer. He's one of the guys who broke this Tom Brady story that's out right now. And
the Tom Brady story that keeps going back and forth.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think what it is Tom Brady wants to announce that he's pissed. He must be so pissed right now
that everyone
they stepped on his shit, man. He must be so pissed.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I went to the Misfits show with Jason La Canfora.
Oh wow!
And he's a huge Misfits fan, huge Fugazi fan.
But I read your stuff, and you also do these great mock drafts that are like, in retrospect, they should have let you friggin' draft.
But there's a draft that
the Jets have draft friggin' bums.
I had one draft that I put first round TJ Watt, third round Cooper Kupp.
Sure.
I mean, hello. It's like I do know how to break down tape because of this. I've learned how to do that. But it's like I wasn't breaking down tape then.
Hey, you know what? This is for all our people out there watching the show from Queens, New York. Here we go. Young Steve Blush and John Matlock from the Mets. Suck on that.
That's pretty great, isn't it? In my Nerf shirt. Yeah.
That is awesome, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some classic New York
Queens,
Mets right there.
New York Met legend, John Matlock.
That's right.
We love that guy.
So,
yeah. So hey, let's wrap it up. I want to thank you. Really enjoy. I knew it was going to be a great show. Anytime a friend comes on that I have a history with, it's just like a conversation in the living room. Anybody you want to shout out, thank, anything like that?
Nah, just if you want to check me out, it's stephenblush.com. Cheers to American hard. Look, cheers to like New York hardcore, because it just the scene itself, and you have so much to do with this, but it's like it's so powerful historically right now. I mean, it's really like there's like 5 music forms or so you could point to that like still deliver, and one of them is New York hardcore. It's really true.
Steven, you have some Messina, you want to come on? You got something? You got something for Steve Blush, Steven?
I just wanted to, say thank you for a great show.
Right.
I it's funny. The Seconds magazines with Soundgarden on them, I still have those.
Friggin' order. Throw.
I do.
You probably sold it with slip disc or something like that.
No, in fact, the funny thing is the one that's like a tan cover where they're all together.
Yeah.
Not only do they still have that, I used to have. I had photographed the cover and made a poster of it, and I used to have that poster up in our old rehearsal space years and years ago.
Cool.
And it's probably still on the ceiling of the place when we got evicted out of there. But
I love that.
And also, I'm a huge fan of the New York Rock book, which I've told you before, and of the Art of the Interview series. I hope eventually you could pick that up again.
Thanks. No, I appreciate it all. It's like you guys have, I was kind of floored when I saw it was like episode number 174 or some number like that. I was like, way to go, guys. You're doing it.
We're at it. We've been working hard, and listen.
Yeah, can I just say one thing though? It's like, and I come away from this conversation with it. It's like, it's all about your work ethic. Really, like nothing else matters. It's like, did you work hard enough in your time to make shit happen? It's like, I live by that every day. I am never, ever upset to get up and work. Ever.
Absolutely, Mr. Dukowski. It's all about your work ethic and how it's handed down. In my case, it was handed down from my father, Arnie Stone. But I mean, we talked about Black Flag, and in retrospect, one of the things that I took from bands like Black Flag and SSD Control, specifically Al Burrell, is a work ethic. And don't be afraid. Get up, get out, and make shit happen. Like I said in the Boston hardcore film, and that's one thing I learned early on from the hardcore scene, from people like Al Burrell and Chuck Dukowski and Glenn Danzig, and Jerry Only. Don't wait for
like if it wasn't for hardcore, I'd be like some asshole lawyer. I'm convinced of that. You know what I'm saying? That's what I was geared to be.
Oh, that's funny.
And I thank every day that I'm not.
Oh, Tony just said that the Bustin' Balls book is out now, right?
Yeah. And it's actually, as I said, it's doing quite well, and it's like it's almost like it's been embraced. So it's almost like Ball 4, like the Jim Bouton book was
Jim
about
Bouton,
baseball, and about this kind of dirty story, and again, it's like kind of connects back. I feel like it connects back to everything I've been doing, and I'm really proud of it all. And but thanks for having me. It's really
my pleasure. We'll talk to you later, Stephen Blush, and thank you. I'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you to everyone for listening. It meant a lot.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Cool show.
Oh yeah, I knew that was going to be a good one.
Yeah, me too.
What is the great Charles Bukowski quote? Find what you love and let it kill you.
That's good.
I mean, that's what we're all doing.
Yep. Want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, RS. Steven is here. Sid is up at Sid today was up at Hooligan Holiday in Albany, New York. And where's Sid, Steven, Sid? That's 2 Sids.
I'm here.
Steven, right. Yeah, Sid's
present.
Sid's up at the Hooligan show. Jimmy Hazel. Got to shout out Jimmy Hazel real quick. For those that may be living on another planet, let me put this up. 24/7 Spies is playing one of our beloved Hardcore Sunday matinees on March 20th. Sunday, March 20th, flyer by Stephen Messina. It is
Yes.
24/7 Spies, Ache, Neighborhood Shiznit, Serial Poets featuring Stephen Messina on vocals and Iconicide celebrating their 33rd anniversary. So everybody got to come down. That's coming up, So that should be cool. Everybody get ready. All right. I'll see
Thank you, Chucky.
We got the photographer Mark Weiss guy
Yes.
coming up. Let me get that flyer real quick. This should be interesting. I got some homework to do. We're going to get into some different stuff with this guy. He has taken some incredibly iconic photographs. So we will see you on Wednesday, February 2nd, coming up. Mr. Mark Weiss. All right.
Legend.
Can you say legend?
Well, we're doing it. I love that you're giving me a double header of photographer legends, by the way.
Yeah. Yep.
So
there you go. All right, bro. We'll see you in a bit.
See you guys.
Once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This was the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. We will see you on Wednesday with Mark Weiss. Until then, my friend, do good things and good things will come to you.